All right, we're foregoing our normal introduction tonight because we're running just a hair late. There was a traffic accident on the way in, so we're just gonna go with that, and we're gonna zoom in here, and then we're just gonna cut over. How's that? We're just gonna go to a table shot, zoom in, and then table shot. I usually have this all animated, and it doesn't work that way. So welcome to the show. We have a special guest tonight, Scott Norton. Horton, sorry. I'm pushing buttons as I'm talking, so it doesn't always facilitate it. So there we go, table zoom. Welcome, Scott. Oh, yeah, that's good. It's got the things at the bottom, but we're going to go for it. And he should be good to go. We got audio. Shane, you want to give us a little introduction? Obviously, Shane Trejo's here. Teddy, what are you? You're a Fed and a Black Pillar and all of that stuff.
One and the same, I guess.
Yeah. I can make sure.
I got my black shirt.
No, I didn't turn all
my
the mics.
black pill.
Yeah, you got your black shirt, black pill, and of course Dennis Marburger, and we're honored to have Scott with us. So you want to bring us in?
Or how about Dennis?
Dennis Marburger.
Okay. The great Scott Horton is here. Scott, it's wonderful to see you. We appreciate your time. We know you're a very busy man, and you are somebody who has been a great leader in the libertarian movement and the anti-war movement over the years.
Well, thanks very much, Dennis. It's nice of you to say, and it's great to be with you.
Well, no, you're welcome. And I guess when we get through here, you can tell us about all the things that you work on, antiwar.com, the Libertarian Institute, the Scott Horton Show, just so many things, and the thousands and thousands of interviews that you've done. And so we're looking forward to hearing from you on what's going on today and what has led up to this and what might be the result of all these things.
Yeah, I guess you're talking about Iran, huh?
Well, Iran, yeah,
There's
sure.
so many things on fire in the world. I'm not sure if you want to narrow it down or what.
Yeah, Iran, Ukraine, Russia, and then I just heard Jason Jones, and we can talk about what's happening to the Christians in the Middle East, and he mentioned towards the end there Artsakh, and so all sorts of things that we can talk about. So
yeah,
we're looking forward to that.
Let's get started with Iran.
Yeah, let's
ask away.
So Iran, greatest deal in the history of deals?
Absolutely. Greatest victory in the history of victories.
I mean, it's just
a lot of people are saying that it's the greatest victory that anyone has ever achieved on any battlefield ever.
It's just the art of the
people
deal, like the best it can be. This is like the art of the deal. You know, it's like 5D chess, art of the deal, trusting the plan, and we freaking won.
It's all come to fruition.
We got things back to how they
years.
were before the surprise attack that we did on Iran. That's a victory.
Yeah. It's a hell of a thing, guys. I think if someone had just been on vacation for a few months, like hiking out in the mountains or something, and came back, Rip Van Winkle type thing,
right?
You say, what? It started a war with Iran, and then for no reason,
yeah,
and then a surprise attack in the middle of negotiations based on a lie and all for Israel, and then it completely backfired, and we didn't achieve a single of the stated war goals, but now Iran is 10 times more powerful than before. Jeez.
That
sounds like a government program.
Yes. 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 You want to dive into some of those details, Scott, for us just a little bit? I mean,
Sure.
Trump was set up from the beginning and told, this is going to be just like Venezuela,
Iraq.
you're going to be able to go in there. Oh yeah, well, that's what the right people told him it would be like. It would be a quagmire. But the wrong people said, nah, it's going to be like Venezuela. Just go in there, do a little regime change. You'll have control.
The people will rise up.
Yeah, we're going to rise up. What was that? George Bush. We all rise up under George Bush, and then he leave. Anyways, yeah, we've got this whole scenario of that it's going to be over in 4 days, and then we're in a quagmire. He gets the vote against him in Congress. There's all these things that just and all of the actual military experts said, don't do this. You're going against the Persians. This is not going to work, dude. So
You got that right.
Give us, where do you want to start on your analysis on that? You want to start anywhere in that timeline, and we can backtrack.
Let's start with
forward.
that.
Okay.
Let's start with that. This was not the Pentagon's long-term plan for global domination that says that we must have a regime change in Tehran. They've been able to rationalize living in a world where Iran is ruled by the mullahs since 1979. All they're kind of crying about it, notwithstanding,
Right.
because the question has always been, yeah, but what are you going to do about it? Jimmy Carter tried to answer that by saying, well, I'm going to hire Saddam Hussein to go in there and overthrow the thing. But that didn't work. And in fact, the real history, as some of you may be quite familiar, is that Saddam Hussein's American-sponsored invasion in the fall of 1980 helped solidify the power of the regime in Tehran, which was a fledgling revolutionary power and was economically destitute and was sort of barely hanging on to the illusion of a monopoly on violence in the region, in the country there. And then, but boy, once the Iraqis attacked, all of a sudden they're calling up conscription and people are obeying because they're obviously somebody's got to be in charge, and it's the Ayatollah. And it's been like that ever since then. So, really that's, in a way, I always tell the same story, like from a libertarian economic point of view, that each intervention causes the next one and the next one and the next one, like any government program. It just makes matters worse and worse. But another kind of theme, you could tell the same story, is that like ever since 79, we've been trying to stick it to them. We've been trying to figure out a way to hurt them, and it keeps backfiring. And, the biggest things would be the Iran-Iraq war, which only solidified their power. And then, of course, Iraq War II, which only put their best friends in power in Baghdad. The dirty war in Syria, which was supposed to take Assad away from them and only ended up creating the caliphate and necessitating Iranian intervention directly on Iraq's behalf and America's behalf to destroy the caliphate again, and drove Hezbollah and Syria deeper into Iran's arms. That is, at least through the end of 2024, when Al-Qaeda finally took Damascus. But for that whole time instead, in the middle there. And now this war has kicked them way up. I don't know how you quantify this. If Iraq War II, if W. Bush getting rid of secular Sunni Saddam and putting the Shiite supermajority in power there, who all serve at the pleasure of the Ayatollah Sistani, even though he's not supreme leader. If you want to measure that by saying, okay, like however you measure a peg, say George W. Bush put Iran up 2 pegs in doing that in Iraq. Well, then I don't know exactly how to measure this either, whatever, quantify it. But like, I would think that our recent war in Iran has helped to increase their power another 2 or 3 or 4, really. You know what I mean? I don't know exactly. And we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. It's only kind of just ending. But it seems to me like this war was a pro-Iran error on par with Iraq War II, right? A massive, unforced shooting oneself in the foot. You know what I mean? And
it's ridiculous.
And they just keep doing it.
They just keep doing it.
I'll give my president, the deal maker, the greatest deal in the history of deals, Donald J. Trump, some credit, because at the very least, Bush took this for years and years and years. At least Trump will cut bait and say, he'll say,
agree.
He'll say, he won't say like, oh, it was a disaster, but he'll cut bait and say it's over. And I think that's why Trump is still better than any Republican alternative, is because at the very least he'll say, enough of this, I'm bored with this, it's not working, let's go back to something else, or let's just act like it never happened.
Like how
I agree with that. I agree with that. And he should be praised when he does the right thing, even if we kind of want to make fun of him a little bit and whatever. But like, the Democrats are out there saying, oh, this is a terrible deal, and he's such a loser. He's given away the store to the Iranians, and they ought to shut their fat mouths. What we need to hear is positive reinforcement when the man stops doing the wrong thing. And anybody saying that, no, he needs to do the wrong thing more and worse until he accomplishes a goal that he's already completely failed to accomplish is doing the devil's work there. And, whatever, whoever's out there on the left, whoever they are, they should not stand for that. I mean, God dang, there's so many horrible things about liberals and progressives and whatever, but are we to be spared nothing when it comes to trying to out-hawk the Republican president as being some kind of a pushover and a wimp? It's just intolerable. It's disgusting. But anyway, sorry, I'm off on a tangent. I just hate Democrats so much. I like talking about it sometimes. But The point is, though, that it was wrong to do the war, and you're damn right. It's absolutely the right thing for him to cut and run, and there ain't no shame in it, dude. It's the right thing to stop doing the wrong thing.
Right.
There's, you know what I mean? So, like, that's it.
Well, we know-
It could have been better. He
Yeah.
might have not started it at all, but
Yep.
absolutely, he should be praised for backing out now.
Yeah. Well, we know he's not the president that's ever going to apologize for anything, but for him to at least capitulate and cut bait, as Shane said, and walk away.
And the
That's
tone,
huge.
the tone recently, I mean, has shifted to be very much, calling Israel out for a lot of the stuff that they're doing that's bad. You hear Trump, saying they're a small partner.
Very small.
JD's been on a media tour where he's really been telling it like it is. So, Scott, do you believe that this is going to have any impacts? In the short, medium, long term, is this going to affect our relationship with Israel, or
No.
are we just going to all go? We're going to go back to normal, where they're calling the shots in no time.
Well, look, I mean, the American people are pissed, and the American people kind of don't count, but kind of do. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have an American people lobby the way that there's a Saudi lobby and an Israel lobby
Right.
and a nuclear weapons lobby and whatever.
Yeah,
but
the corporations
overall-
don't care about us.
Yeah, I mean, when the spirit of the country is just, we all absolutely hate this, and we hate any politician who says that they support it and want to continue going along with it.
Right.
Ultimately, over the long haul, we get what we want, and it becomes politically impossible to continue holding to the older line. I mean, of course, here it's a huge battle just between money on one side and public opinion on the other. And, this should not be controversial to say, like, I read this in the Wall Street Journal, and this was the headline. This is the way they framed it, because it's just, this is the truth, and what are you going to do about it? This is true, and that's what we have to deal with, is that as they reported it then, this was a few years back, I don't know, maybe 10 at the most, not even 8 or something, 6, that 2/3 of the money that supports the Democratic Party, on the national level, comes from a small handful of Jewish billionaires who are more appropriately designated Jewish Zionist billionaires, who are determined to use that money to influence the party to make sure that it stays loyal to Israel. Meanwhile, virtually the entire rank and file of the Democratic Party voter base feels another way about it, right? Like, anyone to the left of center at all, anyone who calls themselves a liberal or a progressive or a leftist of any kind,
Yeah.
all of them are over it. So you have this clash. And on the right, it's not as stark, because on the right, there's still a lot of people who really do support Israel, not just Christian Zionists of different descriptions, but other people who just, side with the Israelis in their fight against the Islamic hordes or whatever kind of thing that, left over from W. Bush years.
I don't
So
think
it's
Scott,
more
I
of a 50-50
terrorists.
thing there.
I don't think on
But-
the right side that a majority of them that are not the non-Christian Zionists that you're pointing out, I don't think they think about it. I don't think they consciously
Well, I think that,
process
yes,
it.
I
And then
agree
you
with that.
point it out to them and you go, why are you supporting Israel because of this? And you start to point out atrocities or other things they've done. They go, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And
I absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's true for Americans by and large. And I think that's probably even true for most American Jews. I mean, for people who are interested in this subject, they're interested in this subject. For everybody else, like, where are you even going to come across this stuff?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
another news story out there floating around. But if you don't watch the news or care about the news, like, you're just not that kind of person. And I think that's true for almost everyone, and particularly on Israel-Palestine. And I remember I noticed this when I was a child, that they would go, today in Lebanon, some things happened. There's a giant civil war all through the 80s when I was a boy. Today in Lebanon, these guys killed those guys. But they would never say, okay, here's a map, and here's who's who, and here's what they're fighting about, and here's a little bit of the background so that you could understand. They would only just tell you the day's events. They never, catch you up.
right.
You know what I mean? And I think it's the same thing with Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
Where it just sounds like Palestine is the country next door. You hear about Palestinians all the time. They must be from Palestine, right? And then, but then as soon as someone explains that, no, there is no Palestine, because Israel's on top of it.
Right.
And the Palestinians live on these Indian reservations, basically, these concentration camps
Yes.
in the West Bank and Gaza, but they don't have, ownership over their own society in any way. And it's been like this longer than the communist occupied Eastern Europe. And the cruelty and the joy with which they kill these people's children and stuff is so out of control. It compares only to the cruelty of the communists under Joseph Stalin or under Mao Zedong. I mean, it's absolutely sickening, and it's exactly the kind of thing that we should not be doing at all. And when you explain that to people, they go, "Oh, I didn't even know." You know what I mean? Like, it seems like even if you see a map, the West Bank and Gaza, it kind of looks like, I mean, maybe you don't understand the Gaza, the bifurcation there, but like the West Bank looks like maybe it's a country, but it's like, no. That's just an Indian reservation.
Yep.
They already were whooped and conquered back in 67.
Yeah.
Ruled by a foreign military since 67. And it's sock puppets, right? There's a Palestinian Authority there, but it's nothing like a government of a sovereign state in any way. And again, just to agree with you more, that once you explain that to essentially any American of anywhere on the political spectrum who never understood that before, and you just go, look, man, it's just the cowboys and Indians, except the cowboys won't stop butchering the Indians' children ever.
Correct. Yeah.
Because it's so much fun to kill them and torture them and take their property away from them. That's what it is.
Yes.
And like, you might side with the cowboys. What the hell? I'm an Anglo from Austin, Texas. Okay. But am I going to sit here and pretend like, yeah, but we didn't do nothing? And those Indians, they deserved every bit of what they got. No, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, dude. Come on.
Exactly.
You know? So
Dennis,
I think,
you got a question?
you appeal to the fairness in anyone, they're going to side with decency.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Okay. Dennis, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm the old geezer here. I'm the senior member of this group. And I'm old enough to remember in the 1960s, the 1967 war, and the way it was portrayed in the media, including our local papers and all that sort of thing. And it was very one-sided, very much rooting for the Israeli side in that situation. And I believe that a big part of the problem here is the approach that's taken in media and in if any approach at all is taken educationally, probably there as well, but and also through the political system. That people have been so indoctrinated over time, and amongst say people on the right and or in the Republican Party or libertarians or however we want to phrase that, there seems to be I believe a delineation based on age. Most of the people in my generation, we just saw this with the Tom Massey defeat in Kentucky, right? You saw those polls. He did very well with the younger voters who have a lower propensity to vote than the older voters, people in my generation, many of whom, when they came out of the polling place, were quoting things that they either got wrong or were only partially correct, and their only source was Fox News. And so I think that to put a shorthand thing on it, the Fox Newsification of America and of the American right is perhaps the 21st century corollary to what Murray Rothbard wrote about the betrayal of the American right, back in the 50s and 60s, that sort of thing. And so because that's happened, I think a lot of people are just, it's been so indoctrinated, and reiteration is the key to learning. It's also the key to indoctrination. It's been so indoctrinated that a lot of people just don't believe. If you try to explain what really happened there, they go, no, but I've been told for so often, all these people here are terrorists. But the veil is falling from the eyes, I believe. More and more people, including my generation, are starting to see what actually has been going on for a very long time there, and is something spearheaded even by some evangelical Christians, and as you would note also, people of the Jewish faith who are not Zionists, who are some of the most cogent observers and articulators of this point. So
and even liberal Zionist Jews who say that, like, they don't believe in the biblical mandate to conquer all of historic Palestine. In fact, they could be quite chauvinist and say that essentially we ought to let these people go because we don't want them and we don't want their cooties and we don't want them around us. So let's just build a wall around the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and call it a sovereign state. Fine. Let them have their independence. Maybe even kick the Israeli Arabs out, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, kick them out too. And then they can have their liberal Zionist dream where it's a liberal Jewish democracy and they don't have to worry about the Arabs, right? So those are even Zionists, but liberal Zionists. And also it does bother their conscience, the level of oppression that they have to inflict on the Palestinians all the time. They kind of believe that they're Martin Luther King civil rightsy types who believe in equal justice for everyone and stuff. So it is very apartheid. It is very horrible. And so a lot of them, at least up until, I don't know, man, and I'm sure this is still the case, right? That that there are a lot of even Zionists who are against the occupations and the mistreatment of the Palestinians, even if for selfish and chauvinist reasons, would prefer that they don't go on like this. And in fact, back to one of the things y'all were saying at the beginning there is Donald Trump, and I don't believe he's sincere in this, right? As our old friend Phil Crincoli would say, like, this is all just, professional wrestling and jobbery here. And then, so they're pretending to have a big fight because they lost the war. So Trump has to say that, yeah, losing a war to Iran ain't that bad. They're pretty good guys. And after all, who cares if they have missiles and enriched uranium and all these things? It's hilarious to watch him walk it all back. But he has to do that. And the Israelis have to pretend to piss and spit and stomp their feet about it and cry about it. But what are they going to do? We tried it. They convinced Trump to try it. Mm-hmm. He bombed them for 5 weeks and it didn't work. And things were only getting worse. And so they decided to quit while they were only this far behind, and then kick the can down the road this far just to admit that they lost till, the temperature, cooled off a little bit to come out and sign this memorandum where we give everything and they give nothing other than, as you said previously, the status quo ante and the strait, and reopen the strait, which, by the way, if you read the MOU, it says for 60 days. And then it implies that from now on, Iran and Oman are going to have a joint gangster mission to toll and control the strait in what used to be a wide open international waterway, or was treated as such, and now will not be. So it is look, from the point of view of the empire, it's a disaster. There's an article in Foreign Policy right now today that's called "Our Defeat in Iran is Worse Than Vietnam." And they go, how can we say that after we killed 3 million Vietnamese and lost 60,000 of our own guys and all that? And they go, because we won the Cold War anyway. And because ultimately Vietnam didn't matter. Because ultimately, geez, we shouldn't have done that because of just how unimportant Vietnam turned out to be. But Iran is not Vietnam. Right. Iran is crucial. And this is essentially, we called our own stupid bluff on dominance in the Middle East. So you have people who are card-carrying imperialists who are crying their eyes out right now, going, man, Donald Trump just completely blew our bluff and just proved what a tough guy we're really not when it comes to pushing around a simple middle-rank power. See, everybody already knew that we couldn't implement a counterinsurgency doctrine to pacify insurgents in South Vietnam, Iraq, or Afghanistan.
Right.
But that's stupid, though. You know what I mean? Counterinsurgency. You're going to separate the women folk from their husbands and fathers. Like, shut up. This whole thing is completely retarded. But it's also beside the point, right? Any conservative talk radio guy would have told you that the purpose of the military is destroying the military of enemy powers.
Right.
And their capital cities, if we have to defeat states. Right, not to pacify menfolk in mountain villages somewhere. I mean, but so put us up against Russia or China in a head-to-head major power, major equipment level, high power contest, and we kick their ass with all our F-117s, I guess they retired those, all our B-2s and all our littoral combat ships and all of our things, bring them on. But then now we went up against a second or maybe even third ranked power and got whooped.
Right.
Right. Not that Iran's coming here to dominate us, but just that we've proven that we can punch them as hard as we can. And all we do is break the bones in our hand. And they're still standing there. So now what are we going to do after that other than just slink home?
Right.
And that was the key point there, almost like a rope-a-dope kind of a situation. In this, because again, the meme says Iran clearly they want war. Look how close they put their country to all of our bases and ships and planes and troops. Right. So like I say, they didn't come over here to bother with us. And so
what are we doing?
Right. And like Dr. Paul talked about regarding the situation in Iraq and in Afghanistan, he said, so what ended up happening is Bin Laden, and you've talked about this, they didn't have to send people over here. We sent our people over there, made it easier for them to kill our people and to bankrupt us. And so eventually we'll get into the economic aspects of all this and what a disaster that's been as well. But the last thing I wanted to mention, getting back to the other point we were talking about, one of the heartening things that's happened, and it's of course a very high cost when you look at what's happened to how many people are suffering this human misery, but more and more people are going back, and Tucker Carlson was one of the people leading this, but the anarcho-Christian sites talked about this, and a lot of people, Christian and Jewish, have said this has been a misinterpretation of what's in the Bible. It isn't even biblically, theologically correct to say what they're saying about this, about, again, the definition of Israel and to whom the promise was made and what does all that mean. So even that part, these people say that's not true. And of course you can say, well, that's disputed. But one other quick point about that is then you say, well, wait a minute, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. Is it, if you think, well, what's happening, if we're doing it for the reason that the Zionists say, isn't that establishing a religion, and isn't that violating the First Amendment, among other things? So that never gets brought up. But I think that's a key point. They took away prayer from schools, but they did this, which would cause humongous human suffering for something that was constitutionally wrong and morally wrong, and has totally backfired and been counterproductive. Shocking, I know.
I agree with that. Look, and there are a few other examples. I remember in the W. Bush years, Bill Moyers, who, had that show on PBS, he had been LBJ's press secretary and was kind of a moralistic liberal type. He had a great quip. He said, the delusional are no longer marginal. We have these people like at the forefront of power now. Mm-hmm. And it used to be where they were in the background and they were a force in politics. They were a voting bloc and they had like Jesse Helms and maybe a couple of others. But essentially,
they were so marginalized.
Reagan wasn't one of them. Reagan was from out in California. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's different. And so, and then, like, that's right. That, we should absolutely respect people's right to believe whatever they want. Absolutely.
But what do we have?
But we have a real conflict when people are saying that it's their religion that they must control American foreign policy in order to force prophecy to come true in some other part of the world.
Right.
It's up to the rest of us in society to say, no, we don't believe that. And no, that's not for the doctrine of the United States. Right. Whether that respects an establishment of religion in a First Amendment sense, I don't know, but it surely violates the spirit of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the so-called social contract that we're all forced into anyway, but is at least the one that people believe is the one they were forced into, rather than one that's just made up by some preacher. And by the way, if you look at the preachers who push all this stuff about the rapture, I mentioned our friend Phil there, Dennis. He sent me a text the other day after the primary in South Carolina when Lindsey Graham won his primary. And Phil texted me and he said, I got people in South Carolina. And by the way, our friend Phil, me and Dennis's mutual friend Phil here, is a very sincere Protestant Christian.
Okay.
And he said, I got friends in South Carolina and they voted for Lindsey Graham.
Wow.
Because they've been promised the rapture. And they really believe it. They really believe that this is how you get raptured up to heaven and please Jesus and get granted eternal life, is you have to support Lindsey Graham for the Senate so that America can continue to fight Israel's wars for them and force biblical prophecy to come true.
And they don't
this is really no less crazy than David Koresh stuff.
Yeah.
It's just has national policy implications in a way that he never did. At least I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Koresh wasn't holding government.
Well,
what were you going to say, Teddy?
One of the main reasons, or at least Rubio was stating, is that, we can't let Iran have nukes or missiles because they're led by a fanatical Shia, radical Shias. Meanwhile, the people behind this war you have the radical dispensationalist Christians that believe in the rapture, and Israel needs to be 100% Jewish, so the rapture can come. And you have the Khanist Jews, right-wing Jews in Israel that are leading the push behind ethnically cleansing Palestinians and Arabs, and pushing for the Greater Israel project as well, which we saw a lot of talk about before the war started, and like the weeks before the war.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Scott,
I have to say that I'm not really a religious guy, and so I kind of look at all these other more nationalist reasons, and I usually regard religion as being used as window dressing by evil power mongers in order to kind of sway people to go along.
Oh, they completely co-opted.
That ain't really right. I mean, there are people with power who very sincerely believe in a lot of these completely crazy doctrines, crazy to me doctrines, and that's on all sides.
I'm a strong believer, and they are crazy to me too. They're ridiculous, and it's been so co-opted. And the people, I love to cite the book by Stephen Prothero I have on my shelf over there. It's called Religious Illiteracy, and it says that the Western Christian churches are their zeal for God is only surpassed by their abject ignorance of what they actually believe. And so it's easy to sway these people and say, oh, the rapture, and oh, we got to do this. And what about the red heifer? I've listened to some people talking in the podcasts, other podcasts, about these red heifers that they've been breeding down in Texas that they're going to ship over to Israel because that's going to usher in the third temple. And I'm like, oh, what is wrong with you people? People want to grasp onto these things, and then as you cited, Scott, the evil people want to use those things to further their own agendas. I mean, they're more, the evil elites are more well versed in Revelation and Daniel and Matthew 24 than most Christians would ever hope to be, because they're using it as a blueprint for their agenda to bring about the negative antichrist sides of that for their own agenda.
Yep.
And this Palestinian, Ukrainian, Iranian conflicts over there in the Middle East are just a continuation of this whole process.
Scott, I got a question.
Sure.
You talk about Trump's, they did the MOU, and Trump and the administration are talking like they want to get out. What's contingent on Israel not bombing Lebanon? If Israel starts bombing Lebanon, do you think that the situation will devolve into a full-blown war again? And basically what I'm getting at, is there any way that Israel can still screw this up for us and keep us in this thing?
Like bombing Lebanon this morning?
Yes. I mean, first of all, that's absolutely the right question. But secondly, the answer is that yes, they can. Now, and I think we'll know a lot whether they do. I think in my judgment, for what it's worth, based on a lot of speculation and inference, I think that the split between Trump and Netanyahu is greatly exaggerated. That they do a lot of jobbery where they say, okay, look, I'm going to do a thing, you cry about it, or I'm going to start moving this way, but I understand that you still got to bomb Lebanon for another few weeks. So you go ahead and keep bombing Lebanon for another few weeks. I'm going to go ahead, and I think I can keep the talks going anyway. And we're going to go ahead and hammer this kind of thing out. And I think it's all very coordinated. I think Trump and Netanyahu get along very well. I don't think it's right that Netanyahu is the boss. Trump is the boss. And look, because I don't know their absolute personal relationship. Maybe Netanyahu has Trump completely blackmailed on a business deal that'll get him going, sent to prison or something. I don't think that. But just on the face of it, the White House is a much more powerful institution than the prime ministership of Israel.
Right.
And so one of these guys is the senior partner in this. And I don't think there's really any confusion in it.
Well, we've seen even like in the June war last year, where mostly Axios and Barik Ravid would leak articles of saying about a Trump Netanyahu split, or Trump not wanting to bomb Iran or anything like that, and then the opposite happens. And especially throughout the war, we've been seeing a lot of Axios articles by Barak Ravid that say something to manipulate the oil markets and any other market for that matter, and then the day or two later, the opposite happens. So what we've been seeing really is the Israeli media and Israeli-aligned media really kind of spinning a lot of what official information or leaks from the White House, trying to say, oh, there's a Trump-Netanyahu split. But throughout the last year, we really haven't seen that. We've seen that they've been more in lock, in step the entire time.
But so now my point of view is this, though, that I'm not saying that the peace deal is fake and that that's what all the posturing is about.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is I think that Trump is seeking a peace deal here.
Right.
That he's already consulted with Netanyahu and explained to him, listen, we tried the war. It didn't work.
Right.
Our time is short. And now I'm backing out and you're backing out with me. And that's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And you understand that. And then, but Netanyahu knows that he has a certain amount of flexibility, such as, for example, continuing to bomb Lebanon this week.
Yeah.
Then to your question, the question is, does Netanyahu have the chutzpah to bomb the crap out of Beirut tomorrow, Friday, when they're supposed to be signing this thing, and fully destroy it? Now, the latest headline, by the way, as we're talking, I don't know if we're live or recording, but here Thursday night, Thursday evening, the latest headline is that Iran's not going. Except I don't think that's confirmed by central sources. There's a couple different reports of that, but I don't think that's confirmed by the national government of Iran that they're not
think it
going
was
to.
Iranian state-aligned media, Al Mayadeen, that reported that a couple hours ago that they were not going to Switzerland before.
Yeah, but I mean, did they have an official statement from the foreign minister saying they're definitely not going? I really hope not.
Not that I saw. I just know it was state-aligned media.
In other words, the question is, did Israel already screw it up?
Right.
Will Iran let Israel bombing Lebanon ruin the deal? You know, it's a complicated thing. As I just did this interview with Mario Naufal, where I was saying, you know, it would be a huge mistake on Iran's part if they let Israel derail this whole thing.
Yeah.
Just by bombing Lebanon on Friday, when the real question is whether they keep bombing on Saturday and on after that.
Well, not
But
only
then
that, didn't we
Mario pointed out that the thing is, they might be smart to draw the line here and say, look, Trump, why would we sign this deal with you when you've already proven you can't rein them in? And it'd be harder for them to back out of the deal after they've signed it than back out of the deal before they do.
Right.
You know what I mean? So maybe it makes sense for them now, because maybe, in other words, maybe the answer to your question is Netanyahu already won. Netanyahu already convinced them to not go on Friday, and he's going to figure out how to escalate the thing from there. Now, I'm more hopeful than that. I think that probably the Iranians are going to go ahead and go and sign the thing and do everything they can to get Trump's word that he is going to put whatever pressure he has to on the Israelis to get them to stop. But of course, recent history doesn't prove that things like that work very well. For example, Trump's promises to Hamas, if they will only enter into the ceasefire with the Israelis. He promised he would restrain the Israelis, but the headline on antiwar.com today is that they've killed 1,000 people since then.
And do we have, are the Iranians going to have the same escort that they've had a number of times already, because they were getting killed when they were coming to the peace table, and then they had to have the Pakistani military escort their planes so they didn't get shot down again. So this is the questions we have. You know, it's like they're going to try to derail this at any cost, because we pretty much know that Netanyahu goes to prison if he doesn't have some type of war and keeping his war powers going over there. So
well, I think
that's a crucial point. And, you know, it's funny because it almost sounds like trivial, or maybe like, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I hear people sort of dismiss that as like, what, like it's too pat of an explanation for what's going on. But for people who don't know, the guy is caught red-handed breaking the law in Israel. And it's on some real simple stuff. It's champagne and jewelry and other emoluments especially for his wife from powerful donors, including the Adelsons and everything. And anyone can go and sign up for the Tucker Carlson channel, or just go to the Pirate Bay and watch the BB Files. Make sure you have a VPN before you use the Pirate Bay. But get the BB Files, and the whole thing, it's a documentary, but the whole thing is just video of the Shin Bet. That's the Israeli FBI interrogating not just Netanyahu, but all of his people,
his whole cabinet.
And they just got him dead to rights. I mean, this is a simple felony by the book, the same as it would be for your mayor or your governor in your state to take champagne and fancy watches and diamonds for himself and his wife from, you know, foreign billionaires. Hell, maybe you get away with that in America, but it's against the law in Israel. And so, but then, as you said, this is how he stays out of jail, is by staying the prime minister, and especially at war.
At war.
You don't expect me to go and sit through a trial. You're not going to put your war leader in prison. Give me a break. We got to put this off. Your Honor, we're requesting another continuance. And he's getting away with it so far, you know, but it's absolutely crucial that people understand that it ain't just Israel. It is Netanyahu, and it's his personal problems that have a lot to do with the economics of his intervention here.
I think another thing too is that obviously there's an Israeli election coming up in October at the latest. But if you look at what the main opposition party by former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has been saying, is that they're saying Netanyahu is not going hard enough, right? So when Trump did the Lebanon ceasefire and all that, the Israeli public turned against Trump and Netanyahu. Then Netanyahu right after bombed Beirut and Daya and the Shiite areas that caused Iran to almost attack before the ceasefire.
Right.
So, and if you look at polling too, most Israelis, I think, over free force, when polled, want to expand the war and escalate the war in Lebanon. And so I think, while Netanyahu has to play a fine line, try not to go to jail and trying to deal with the election stuff, the opposition, led by Naftali Bennett and the liberal parties, are more hawkish
Yeah.
than Netanyahu is currently.
Yeah, 100%. Respond to that, Scott, or Dennis was that in line with that? Dennis, go ahead.
Well, just a quick point. I think what we're just talking about, what you were discussing, Scott, is something that a point Charlie Kirk raised when he was saying it looked odd, the whole thing leading up to October 7th, and then what happened on that day, and then right after those attacks.
You mean the 7.5 hour stand down? Is that what you mean, Dennis?
Yeah, that whole thing.
Okay.
And then the way that Netanyahu and his government dealt with all of that.
And how about Netanyahu through Qatar giving billions of dollars to subsidize Hamas in the months leading up to October 7th?
Right. In fact, Scott and I'm drawing a blank on the name. Freeman. You guys had the article.
Connor.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Connor Freeman and I wrote a piece called Netanyahu's support for Hamas backfired, and where we detail not just Netanyahu's, but Israeli support for Hamas ever since the 1980s and building them up as a right-wing religious alternative to the PLO and what's now Fatah. And look, I try not to jump to conclusions about stuff where I really don't know for sure. I would not try to debunk the case that they deliberately stood down and let that attack happen or let it be as bad as it was.
Okay.
But I have simpler explanations for what happened. Including, but look, ultimately it's just like September 11th, where hell, they might as well have done it themselves if you look at the cynicism with which they exploited it.
Yes.
So on a moral level, it
whether
ain't
it's a
that
black
different.
flag or a false flag or something, they're using it. They're exploiting it.
Yeah, the thing is, people just believe in government too much, man. Security is a government program. And so it means that the economics of it all are all stupid and wrong. And so we're just on the face of it, on the very face of it, Netanyahu's entire policy of deliberately supporting Hamas in order to keep the Palestinians divided and conquered, and in order to be able to have them to scapegoat and say to the U.S. Congress, you don't expect me to deal with a bunch of terrorists, do you? And all of that. The fact that that was the policy is the first huge indication of what was going on here in terms of the failure, because you could see right there why anyone in the chain of command below Netanyahu is in a position where they don't want to tell him he's wrong.
Right.
Any information that says that, we failed and our plans, your plans are all coming to naught right now, you're going to get in trouble for that. Darth Vader will choke the guy that gives him the bad news. And so if you have, sergeants and corporals who are passing important information up the chain of command, there's every reason to understand or even assume that a lot of the time that information gets blocked by a colonel or a general before it ever gets to the prime minister. Because ultimately, if you're explaining it to the prime minister, you're telling him that he was wrong and that he is wrong and that he's been doing the wrong thing and that now it's blowing up in his face. And so nobody wants to do that. So the information permeates throughout the regime, but the prime minister himself, if he hears it, he doesn't hear that much of it and is able to dismiss it. And especially once he's already dismissed it, then it's well, he already dismissed it. He does not want to hear about that, guys. And then so there's, you have that just going into the thing. Then on top of that, you had at the time this massive attempt to pack the Supreme Court in order to get the Supreme Court to legalize all these crazy things that Ben-Gvir wants to do in the West Bank and all that.
Right.
And so there was a massive protest. You might remember there's a huge protest movement in Tel Aviv, but also there was a protest movement inside the security services. And so you had, leadership cast guys from the military, Shin Bet, and Mossad, National Guard, and including intelligence units. They were doing a work slowdown. A lot of them were not showing up to work And it was like a big protest because they were pushing hard. It was like an ultimatum that, you could lose the officer corps of your entire security forces here if you pursue this Supreme Court thing. It was that pitched of a fight at that time. So there were a bunch of guys not showing up to do their job at the top of the security thing.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have a bunch of religious kooks were doing their Sukkot harvest festival, which sounds like some kind of weird pagan thing. I don't know. But they're doing their harvest festival out on the West Bank. And so they called an entire division of guys away from the Gaza Strip to go babysit these settlers who are trespassing on Palestinian property to do their little ceremonies and stuff for this religious rite.
Right.
And it's a Saturday morning. And then Hamas, when they did launch the attack, the first thing they did, I mean, come on, man. Put aside like whatever presumptions of like Hollywood portrayals of Mossad competence or whatever. They had the place rung with automatic machine guns, like on Idiocracy, right? And so like the first thing that Hamas did was they flew drones up there and dropped little thermite charges on top of all those cameras and all those sensors and severed the lines between them, severed the power box for the microwave antenna and just completely blinded them to what was happening. Because of course they did. Yeah. Right. And so, so then you have things where like you have a whatever division or whatever company or whatever sized group of troops are ordered to hole up outside of this kibbutz. And their orders are stay there and don't let anyone get north of you.
Right.
So they go, okay. But then they're right outside of this kibbutz where people are being killed. Mm-hmm. And they're going, well, should we go in there and do something? And they're going, well, I don't know. I mean, my orders were to block the highway. If we go in there, then we can't block the highway anymore.
Right.
And it's like, again, if you don't presume that all these guys are like Netanyahu's older brother, the uber competent Israeli Navy SEAL type, whatever, but that these are just basic security forces.
Right.
Then of course they move in super slow motion. Everything they do is in super slow motion and they call shots. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen that because there was plenty of video coverage of this and whatever, where the tank fired on the kibbutz and killed the people. And the way they tell that story is just like pure incompetence. Like it's complete, like you could see it as a TV show or whatever, how idiotic it was.
Right.
Where like, I think it was like this, if I remember it right, man, I'm sorry, it's been a little while since I went over this, but it was like, I think it was one of the hostage takers took one of the girls and went to snuck out of the house and went to surrender. Mm-hmm. And they told him, take off all your clothes. And he did. He stripped down naked. And they had him come out and had the girl come out. They arrested him. And then she told them, there are 9 more people in there. But then she stupidly said, with the bad guys. And then the commander ordered them to shell the house. And this is like in the Israeli woman's own words, like what she explained happened.
Right.
She told them that they were in there and they hit the house anyway. And
so we're giving them too much credit.
Are we to believe that this is like that the commander on scene was there on orders from the devil or there on orders from Netanyahu?
Right.
To make it worse. Slaughter Israeli Jewish civilians in their kibbutz because we want to be able to cry about it later. Well, there's no way that that's true, dude.
Wasn't the during that
what happened was he panicked. He didn't know what to do, and so he did the stupidest damn thing he could have done.
Right.
Which was she positively identified there being bad guys in the house, and so he said, "Oh, geez, I guess I'll hit the bad guys." And with his own people as collateral damage on the fly, seemingly he took it. There was no reason to think that this order came from above with nefarious intent. It's just that these guys are meathead cops and soldiers. Like, they don't know. They do stupid things. You know what I mean? So, like, that's why I overall, and also, because they call the mass Hannibal doctrine, which, as far as I understand it, and if you guys know different than this, correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as I understand it, the Hannibal doctrine that was just to kill soldiers if they're being kidnapped, presumably one or two at a time, something like that. Okay. Well, here on that day, in again, presumably a panic, I'm not like spinning for these guys, but it only makes sense that they're stressed and they don't know what to do. So they call for, and I believe, as far as I understand, this was invented on the fly, mass Hannibal. Meaning anyone, whether it's a soldier, who after all are conscripts, and that's pretty evil anyway, but anyone who's being kidnapped and taken back into Gaza, even if it's a little old lady, even if you don't know who it is.
Right.
But if there's a car headed back to Gaza, blow it up, even if it presumably has Jewish civilians, Israeli civilians in the car.
Right.
Go ahead and hit them all anyway. And then there were some, I don't know the total number of incidents and the total number of dead, but there were enough of these different incidents where then this became part of the reason that they had, quote unquote, air quotes, to embellish the atrocities of Hamas. Because even though Hamas absolutely did kill civilians, right, now they have people whose bodies are burnt beyond recognition, people who were blown completely to hell, people who, you know, the house is completely destroyed. So, but that was the Hannibal Directive that did that. Right. It wasn't their rocket-propelled grenades that did that.
Right.
It was Israel that did those things.
And then
but then so they had to explain, oh my God, look at how bad it was that they blew up this whole family. And it was like, no, that was Israel that blew up the whole family. You know what I mean? So they had to kind of cover for it. And then, so anyway, don't get me wrong, because I should have said this at the beginning, and this is absolutely like, I don't think anyone would dispute. This was the Israeli total insider reporter Ronan Bergman, writing for the New York Times, said that they had Hamas's plan for this more than a year before the attack. That they absolutely knew. We know they have a total surveillance state in the Gaza Strip. I don't know how many spies they had in Hamas, but they absolutely have electronic surveillance in their ear holes and out the other side. And so they absolutely woulda, coulda, shoulda known, did have prior knowledge, woulda, shoulda, could have stopped it, and did not stop it, which is in a way like, just like with September 11th, that's criminally negligent homicide to an extraordinary degree. Yes. Even if it's, you know, obviously the enemy are responsible for the blood that they shed. You know, in our case, the Al-Qaeda hijackers, and in their case, the Hamas guys. But for the level of failure of their security forces, by whatever motivation or lack thereof, to protect their people, is the kind of thing where people should be hanged over that. Right. I mean, is there no honor left anywhere in the world when all of these women are killed? And none of these guys stab themselves in the heart? What the hell?
Exactly.
Their soldiers, they send their soldiers to Gaza, they come home and kill themselves, but none of the officers take that level of responsibility. None. They wouldn't even consider it. They wouldn't even resign in disgrace unless they're forced to.
Right. Yeah. In what you're talking about is really chalking it up to I love.
Oh man, I'm sorry, boys. I gotta go. I have another interview right now.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Scott.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, I appreciate the amount of time that you gave us tonight. We'll catch you next time.
Great to be with you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye, Scott.
You can check out Scott Horton at the Libertarian Institute and antiwar.com. He's on a lot of different podcasts. He was recently on the Joe Rogan Experience, where millions of people got to listen to him, give the truth about foreign policy. So he's getting the word out to more people than ever before.
Yeah.
And it's cause to be very happy about it.
Question I wanted to ask Scott, but I'll just see what Dennis thinks, is that do you think Trump or the administration will probably try and save face before the midterms by doing an operation in Cuba? Because the narrative has been built up around that.
Yeah.
And the opportunity is there. So I was thinking either, there would be another restart of
get people's minds
combat.
Gets people's minds off of the Iran.
Gets people's minds off the Iranian debacle, and then you say, oh well, we took down the Castro regime, and we freed all the people, and Do you think that would happen?
Well, Teddy, that's a very interesting point. Yeah, and as Seamus, yeah, that, again, deflect away from this. And I should mention also, by the way, those are still watching, listening. Scott Horton has this Scott Horton show, which is outstanding, um, and people can go listen to those interviews. Hey, who knows? He may well do that. I think they have that blockade going now where they're running into all sorts of problems, starvation.
Yep,
And they don't have power.
they've run out of fuel,
Yeah,
and
the lights are out. They can't go. So they're going to have to figure something out. Either stop that or take it to its conclusion. And so maybe they will do that and try to present that as a positive thing done by the Trump administration, a positive intervention, and spin that as, look what a great humanitarian thing we did, and change the topic of conversation. But and the other thing that could be drive them to certainly try to deflect people away from what's going on are all the economic things that are happening as a result of this, economic and supply chain issues. There are still many people that are quite knowledgeable about these topics that say that we're coming down here towards the tank bottom, for those strategic petroleum reserves that
if we don't do this agreement right now,
but
we don't have time for the 4-week gap that we have, or the 4-week lead time that we have right now. That's all we have before we're out.
well,
some people think even if it is signed,
It's still gonna-
it's going to be too late for that.
I think there's still going to be an oil shock in the near future. I mean, things are going down a little bit, but there's still the realization of a shock. And when you looked at the news with the Lebanon situation by Iran not going to Switzerland, you had Brent at a little around $74 a barrel.
Yeah.
And then it went up to 77 as soon as that news came out in the last couple hours.
Okay. Well, and there's, besides the oil and the gasoline, there's the fertilizer issues and sulfuric acid. There's all sorts of different
All that stuff,
things
the
in
urea,
aluminum,
and all that for the stuff. Quick question, jumping off of what Teddy said, I want to go to you, Dennis, and ask this. Well, the whole table. What do you think about, in regard to Cuba? Do you think that there's any angle where a coming back home and going into Cuba, doing anything in Cuba, has a setup for Rubio in 2028? Making him a bit of a Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders type of spin on it, because that's been one of Rubio's underlying things, is going after Cuba, and that would potentially set him up for the 2028, whether he's a VP or the main ticket. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what they're angling for, but I mean, I don't think that the public will support him because of this Cuba stuff, the Venezuela stuff. People have already forgotten about it.
You think it's going to be a flash and then done?
Well, what people care about is economy.
Yes,
How much
the
are
economy's
they
stupid.
paying? Yeah, it's what it always is. Immigration's important. There's other issues that are important too, but
Right.
economy is numero uno. And if we're paying, $4 or $5 a gallon of gas, if
Then we don't care about Cuba.
no one can buy a house who isn't super filthy rich boomer.
Right.
The can't find a date, can't find any sort of relationship. You're miserable. You're all these different things you're on drugs. All this terrible things that everyone is, that's our society is devolving into.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be miserable. They're not going to vote for the status quo. And
Okay.
right now, Republicans are the status quo. I don't think there was very much room for error, and maybe we can undo some of the damage.
Erred a lot.
Maybe we can undo some of the damage of the Iran thing. Obviously, I trust my
Trust you.
president.
You trust the plan?
Did
so
you
I
have
trust the plan, but we were looking at a bad situation in the midterms anyway.
Right.
And I think, if Trump would have, not done really anything foreign policy wise, used all of his political capital on Doge and immigration, I think
We'd have blown out the midterms would have been blown
I think
out.
it would have, he could
And
have
Massey would be in.
taken the independent coalition that he had built, and it would have grown.
100%.
And we could have we could have resisted the typical, realignment during the midterms, but now it's not. They show generic ballots showing Republicans up or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's not looking good.
Well, they
Well,
showed Massey up. They showed the
if you-
other
if you
guy
look at-
above
if you look at the,
Lindsey, and they crashed on both
If you
those.
look at the RCP average, I think it's Democrats ahead by 8 points in the congressional ballot,
Mhm.
and I can't remember, but I think they were up ahead by, I think they won by 4 or 5 in 2018, and they won like around 50 House seats.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's not going to be that much because of the gerrymandering wars and all of that. But,
Correct. Yeah. Al
we're-
Green
we're,
and
we're looking at the definitely the chance of the House going to the Democrats, and now. Out of the ashes of impossibility, the Democrats have a 50-50 chance in taking also the Senate,
which is ridiculous.
which is,
Any thoughts on that? What I said about Cuba and Rubio, Dennis?
Well, the thing about the Cuba thing is, and it's not, it's not necessarily the slam dunk that it's going to be a great thing. They're going to look, oh, what a wonderful triumph that is. Yeah,
Mhm.
as Shane points out, that there are a lot of other issues that would be more
Eclipse
important
it.
to the
Yeah.
people, but
Yeah.
it's possible that then what the people see is what happened to these Cuban people. The Cuban people say, "Oh yeah, your government was starving us, and it was horrible. We were living in hell, and your government contributed to that." People go, "Well, okay," and then now we have a new financial commitment to try to rebuild Cuba, or do something, or will there be Cuban emigres coming to this country? More on the immigration side.
Yeah.
So that could backfire too. So I mean, I don't think it's a
It's no slam dunk.
slam dunk. Yeah, that it's
Yeah.
going to.
I just wonder about Rubio and Vance and a few of the other ones and what their posturing is and what angles they're going to try.
I think the posturing, and especially with the deal, is that they are saying J.D. Vance negotiated the deal. This is J.D. Vance's deal.
Yeah.
And you already are seeing narrative headlines by some articles where J.D. Vance will run depending on how the midterms go.
And he's already a lot of his rhetoric already pushes back
and-
heavily against Israel more than Trump.
And we're seeing a lot of the donor class, the Murdochs, the billionaires, tech billionaires, and all of that, and the Republican elites in private backing Rubio over Vance, because you could say, well,
because he's more neocon.
You could say Rubio's very good at his job because he is the establishment. He's just basically the face of the State Department apparatus,
right?
And he's always been like that. And I think the only way benefit of a Cuban invasion or a successful overthrow of Castro would be, okay, you rally the Cuban voters in Florida around you for the midterms or something like
what's
that
too? I mean, that's 25.
But another thing
electoral.
too is that there are, Cuba has at least a few hundred Iranian and Russian attack drones, Shahed, Jiran attack drone types, which are well in range with Florida and any other part of the state or the country.
There's a benefit there.
So no, I would say if you do another war of choice, and then there's video of
there could be potential
Cuban drones hitting a building in Miami or something like that.
Yeah, now we're
then it's like first time in I guess since 9/11, but like World War II, where U.S. well no, I just say War of 1812, where the U.S. mainland was attacked by a actual enemy foreign military, and that's not look good.
I wanted to ask Scott. We didn't get a chance to do that, but I wanted to ask Scott about. It's a little bit more abstract, but I want to ask you guys. Out of the three conflicts that we've had in the last few years, Palestine, of course, Ukraine. That's been going on since 2014 coup there to bring in the little penis piano player, gay guy. What's his name?
Zelensky.
That guy. And then, of course, Iran. We attacked him last year, and we attacked him again, and that was the ultimate failure. And we're giving him more in capitulation than they would have ever got if we just left him alone. But I look at these three regions specifically, and I go beyond a Netanyahu preserving his power, beyond. We know that there's a whole strategy to try to divide Russia with this huge attack. They wanted to have this incursion into Russia, even though half or better of Ukraine actually voted to secede and join Russia, and Russia said, "We don't want you, form your own country. We have our own issues," and they chose just to stay with Ukraine instead of following through with their secession. But I look at this: Ukraine's a breadbasket of that region. It's actually one of the most prolific food suppliers and other things throughout the nation. We already recognized Iran having all of these oil and fertilizer, urea, all these other things that are going on there. We look at Gaza, the Palestinians, and we know that their land is prime. We've saw Jared Kushner and a bunch of other people talking about how they want to have these high rise and beach, beachfront properties and all these other things like that. How do you guys, when you think about these battles beyond just the surface level things where we have to dig through the minutia of the fake news and the war hawk slants, what do you guys really think the ultimate agenda is? Is it just land grabbing? Is it just annihilating a certain demographic? Or is there the strategic land grabs because you've got oil in the case of Iran and as well as fertilizer and other things? As far as Ukraine, you've got this huge opportunity to grab the breadbasket of the world, and it's so rich in all of these products that they grow. And then, of course, beachfront property in Gaza. What do you guys think of that as far as the geopolitical? I wanted to ask Scott about that as a little bit more of an abstract of that geopolitical dynamic of going, how does that fit in the grand scheme of things to look at it from that perspective alone of just resources? We know that they want the part of the big plan to go into Russia and break it all up using Ukraine as a proxy is to grab the billions and billions of dollars of resources that Russia has under its control. It's one of the reasons why they stay a sovereign nation, is because they have their own resources, can rely on their own infrastructure to maintain them, given sanctions and other attacks that they've gone under. Thoughts?
Yeah. So on the resources front, I mean, I think that can have something to do with it, but a lot of it just is keeping the war machine going, just so we can sell bombs to them, we can overthrow them, we can have these conflicts going.
Okay.
The munitions, the government money keeps flowing. The munitions
So you think it's
contracts
less
keep
about
going.
the land
So
as
it's
much
just
as more about
it's just the nature of the military-industrial complex. It's just a machine that keeps needing to be fed because there's so many different contractors and bureaucrats who operate within the system, and if they go against it, then that's going to be a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of prestige
Okay.
that's denied to some very evil people who are out to get that. So
control the spoils versus what?
yeah, I think it's more of like just the
War machine
the
and
war
control the
machine
spoils.
and the government and the contracts. Then obviously there's resources and land grabs that go on. But I know I talked to some people, particularly like younger people in the right, who they're didn't really come up in the Ron Paul type
Right.
atmosphere that a lot of, I feel like, millennials who
Okay.
got involved younger did, like me.
Right.
So they're not as necessarily as anti-war, and they think like, oh well, America first means we go in, we grab their resources, we use them to help America, something to that
Right.
effect.
Right.
But those resources are not used to help the people. Those resources are used to help the handful of politically connected
The oligarchs.
corporations, the oligarchs.
Yeah.
It's the the globalist class who benefits from these wars and becomes rich off of them, and then it's the ordinary people who are sent to die, put in the meat grinder,
Yeah.
come home, have PTSD, forced to do heinous things for heinous evil acts for no good reason,
Right.
in some foreign hellhole. So that they pay the price. The people pay the price, and for these imperialist policies. And then it's the people that we all hate, the globalists, the elites, the banksters. They're the ones who are profiting and growing richer. So that's why people should support non-intervention, because the idea that we're going to get our hands on those resources through war, it's a misnomer. And when you start thinking like that, you just end up enabling the people who are in power right now to continue to be in power and continue to do this war system
Right.
that has, at the very least since 1940, has dominated our foreign policy.
Well, that's what we heard during the first and second Iraq War was we're going to get the oil. We're going to get the oil. We're going to get the oil. That's going to be our payoff at the end for having to go in and fix this thing. We're going to get the oil. And I look at Iran, I look at Ukraine, I look at Palestine, and there are these underlying resource objectives. And I go, how much do we really think that is? Dennis, what do you think about that, buddy?
Well, it's a very interesting question there, Jeremy. And I think, part of it is trying to justify, rationalize what they're doing.
Yeah.
And of course, they say, well, there's a market for oil. Oil is fungible. It's not
Right.
like you got to invade Iraq to get oil. I mean, or whatever else they're talking about. It's all a bunch of lies.
Yeah.
Like Shane said, really what it is it's corporatism, right? The merger of state and corporate power, or economic fascism.
Right.
For the benefit of a relative few,
Mhm.
at the expense of everybody else.
Mhm.
And so then you say, well, is this all being done because there's this elaborate scheme? And harkening back to what Scott was talking about, I mean, maybe a
Yeah.
lot of what we see, you don't know how much you can attribute to a well thought out plan, and how much is just stupidity and just like
Right.
Shane says, the impulse, and also to keep the munitions thing going and keeping all that thing, just ginning up all the conflict. Like Chalmers Johnson called it a self-flicking ice cream cone. So is that what's going on here?
Yeah, I didn't get that quote out, but that's the quote: is never chalk up to nefarious means.
evil what could be stupidity.
Yeah, is
Right.
easily chalked up to stupidity. So yeah,
So I guess we don't know, but I think what ends up happening is that the resource markets generally are worse off than they were before all this started anyway. If that's what they're
Right.
at great cost of human suffering,
Yeah.
at great cost to our liberty and our privacy,
Mhm.
and I say the human suffering both for the military people from here, but also the people in these other countries.
Yeah.
And you see what's going on over there, and obviously,
Well, and that's part of my point with the resource, talking about the resource grab with Ukraine and Iran and even Palestine, is it's not that they need we've got enough oil here in the United States that if we would actually just access it, oil should be at about $10 a barrel. If we would access all of our oil. They've shut down there's whole oil reserves up in Alaska that eclipse the rest of the world, but they won't let us tap into it. We know that there was huge things. I mean, Biden came in and shut
Well, you
down
have the OPEC mafia as well. If you
correct.
saw,
Well, but
there-
it comes down to the
there was
petrodollar, right?
the petrodollar, but if you look at some interviews with Saudi officials, they needed oil at 50 a barrel to keep their own government systems and welfare programs going,
Mm-hmm.
because most of these people in these petroleum states
Yeah.
work for the government or rely on generous benefit programs as well that require oil to be at a certain price. I mean, that was what with Venezuela for the most part, but the problem is that they produced little oil and the price of oil collapsed anyways back in
Correct.
2014.
But that's what I was going to say. What the point you were making, Dennis, or the follow-up you were making, is that it's not about necessarily getting the resources to have more abundance for the rest of the people. It's about getting the resources of Ukraine and Iran and these other places so that we can then clamp down even more and create this artificial scarcity, right? It's the whole peak oil aspect.
Well, there's something else about this I want to point out. How much of this is a result of, going back to our favorite villain, the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve System,
Yeah.
financing government usurpation of power.
Yep.
And they're doing all these programs they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
You go back, the whole OPEC thing, when that started, and again, that was in the early 70s, I remember this, and the complaint was something that a complaint de Gaulle had, which was that the United States government was intentionally depreciating the value of the dollar to lower the burden of paying their debts and their bills,
Mhm.
and then getting oil. They said we're shipping oil to you at a fixed price in dollar terms, but
Right.
you're depreciating the dollar, therefore we're getting less value, and that really, a lot of this, spins out of that, and
Right.
and if we'd had an actual free market, if we had actual sound money, I think a lot of this stuff, the whole resource thing as an issue, probably goes away, and frankly, I think the people that are driving this either are lying about it or don't understand economics, which is why they
you know, it could
Well,
be.
that's my point. Is we're looking at it from a standpoint of the wars, right? That's the fog of war, the clouds of the whole war, and what's this administration's agenda, and what's this. And Scott was alluding to it a little bit, talking about this, and I wanted to chime in a little bit on what he said. But like, this is the WWE on the surface. You know, we're gonna fight with each other, but behind the scenes, we're already going, "Hey, buddy, I'm gonna take care of this. You take care of that. You come out against this, and I'm gonna come out against this." But what I'm looking at is, look at the areas of strategic control that we're doing throughout the world, okay? And realize I think it's about grabbing the resources, not in a straight up, the old promise of, you know, the 80s and 90s of going into Iraq and we're going to get the oil and the oil is going to benefit the people, because it never did that. But we're going to go in there and we're going to put a stranglehold on whatever resource and control that country. Since the coup of 2014 there in Ukraine, we've had a stranglehold over the resources. It was no longer a part of the free market aspect of Ukraine being able to sell their products wherever they want. We watched BRICS come up. We watched, you know, and Teddy's talked a lot about that area of was it Brazil and Russia.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South
Right,
Africa.
and they wanted to do the oil and their own things, and the global economy can't stand for that. We have to clamp down and have control over that. And I look at these conflicts that we're currently, dealing with Iran and Ukraine and even Palestine. That these are simply, they're less about the genocide is part of it, of course. The conflict itself on the surface levels, but really they're trying to clamp down on these resources, because if we actually released, if we had a true renaissance again and we released all of the resources that we have throughout the world to the whole populace, all of this fiat currency could collapse on its own, and we would weather it for a little while, and people would come out because the resources would be abundant. So they have to control it. When you find out that BP and a whole bunch of these other Shell, Dutch Shell, and these other ones are the ones that are behind fostering a lot of the green energy products. Why? Because if they foster the green energy products and they vilify themselves, they put a control on their oil supply, knowing that oil in some places is so abundant, it's ridiculous, okay? But if we put an artificial control on it, if we say it's peak, if we say there's, it's made by dinosaurs dying and fossilizing, and we're putting dinosaur fossilized skin that turned to oil in our tanks, then we create in ourselves an artificial scarcity of these resources. And so if we can't create an overall artificial scarcity, then we go in and we attack these countries through proxies, through whatever means to get control. And I wonder how much of that dynamic is behind what's really going on from the people that are actually thinking, not the idiots, not the incompetents that we chalk up, right? But how much of that's actually going on to prop up the petrodollar or all these things, but really control the resources, right? Because we grew up under Kissinger, under various administrations who said, if you control, he got to the point where he said, control the water, control the food, and you'll control the people. And I look at all of these resources, these rich resource areas. In my mind, there's no coincidence that we're in Ukraine. We're backing Ukraine to fight against Russia, and we're going after Iran over there in the Middle East. There's like 600 miles distance between the two conflicts, something like that. Okay. And what really is going on there? It's if we control the resources, then we control the people throughout the world. And I look at this greater elite cabal of people going, I'm just going to pull this puppet string over here, and everybody else just plays along. And ultimately, it's about this control. Is that too lofty of a?
I mean, I think there's, like I said, yeah, there's a certain level of, Israel going after the Palestinians. They want that land.
Right.
They're
Let's
just
throw up some
chipping-
casinos and some hotels
They're
and some
just
condos.
chipping away at it little by little. They want the land.
Mhm.
They're going to brutally, ethnically cleanse
Right. That's
the
a greater Israel
Palestinians
product.
to get it. So
Yeah.
that is certainly the top
Right.
motivating factor there. In other areas, it's a myriad of factors. I mean, I think some of them are we want, like, I think the Ukraine thing is more like we're going to show Russia who's boss. We're going to fight them in a proxy war to punish them for getting Trump elected, for all the for opposing us, making us look like fools on the world stage.
Mm-hmm.
The Iran thing is basically that's basically the Israel policy of in the area. They don't want any strong
Right.
regional government. They want a bunch of tin pot dictators who they can kind of pay off and bribe, and who will
And they
chop
said
the heads of the people in their village rather than uniting different.
and even fund a few of them just to make
Well, that's
sure
what
we
they're
got
doing.
controlled opposition.
Well, that's what they're doing in Syria right now with the Druze militias. Even though their preferred dictator, Butcher al-Shara, is in power,
Mhm.
Israel is still funding Druze separatist groups to keep him in check. And also, they are arming now, I think, Alawite groups in the coastal areas as well. So,
And remember, we always used to hear about the Kurds. Oh, the Kurds! We got to free the Kurds. They're
No way.
such a great group, and it's like these guys are like Islamic, communist, terrorists. But we've heard, I mean, for decades, what great
Well,
people they are.
one of the main opposition groups in Iran that we back is the MEK, People's Mojahedin, which is a communist cult. I'm not even joking. This is like a communist Islamist cult.
Very
Yeah.
bizarre group.
Very bizarre group that's based in Albania.
Do they have tattoos and handshakes?
No, but they got a woman in
I mean,
hijabs
'cause-
with AKs.
Because me and Shane can do the Masonic temple.
They'll
The
teach you
Masonic-
that.
Yeah, the Masonic.
No, but yeah, this is a great point, Teddy. Yeah, this MEK group is really nuts.
Mhm.
And of course, they gave money to a lot of American politicians who spoke out on their behalf,
Yep.
trying to foment trouble in Iran and say, "Oh, we should let these guys be the leaders."
And you find
they're
out who they
horrific.
are, and you're like, "What the hell?" That's what I'm saying. It's like Israel's wanted to do the Greater Israel Project for how many decades, right?
Mhm.
But now all of a sudden they've had some backing. It's like you've got these behind the scenes actual powers within the earth that all of a sudden start to back these movements into these different regions, and I go, is there something bigger than just this land grab? Is there something bigger than just this thing? Is it this? Because it's like I was aware of when they started, when not the Koch brothers, even though they were involved in this, but there was one guy down in Texas that was started to really clamp down on water. Like, no, I own this reservoir, I own this lake, I own this thing, because they knew if we control the water resources, then we can control the people, right? You control the food. We had who's the douchebag from Vietnam, John Kerry. He came out there and
John McCain?
No, John Kerry.
Oh, the other John.
Yeah,
But I
the
still
other
want free
douchebag.
Purple
But he said
Hearts.
like a year and a half ago or a couple of years ago when he was, I think under the Biden, he said we got to cut back on the farms because that's the only way to help feed the rest of the world. It was it was the most asinine statement he could make, but he literally said,
Yeah.
we have to cut back on. And I go, this is warfare on a level that we read the headlines and we talk about it, but I think there's this underlying really true warfare of controlling resources that then does fund and dictate to foreign policies that never or very rarely ever rises to the surface of people's comprehension of going, oh wait, that's actually what's behind this.
I think that you're right in terms of a bureaucrat like John Kerry saying we need to clamp down on farms. That's definitely a war on resources, and I think it's done more in the homeland when they do we're going to shut down we're going to regulate your family farm out of business little by little, death by 1,000 cuts. Over in Europe, we're going to have put in some new carbon tax type rules, and now all of your ability to have farms and to cultivate farmland, now that's untenable. You're being run off your farm
Right.
forever, and now
That's when the
Am-
tractors show up and dump shit all
Amazon
over.
and Walmart and a
Yeah.
handful of other corporations dominate the entire food supply. So I think that's how they usually go about it, is through these regulatory power grabs. It's more of what's being done in our countries. I think the foreign policy stuff is just another way to drain us of our resources more, run up the debt.
Right.
They get an excuse to rip up the Constitution,
100%,
take all the powers that they want. So it gives them an excuse to take more power. But I think it's more of just a money dump than it is a resource grab, at least in this modern context of the military-industrial complex.
I like the quote from von Clausewitz: "War is politics by different means." So what we're seeing now, for the most part, is the and you were talking about this with the Western churches, where their zeal to God was only second to zeal with
Their abject, their zeal
abject
for God
ignorance.
is only
But I'd like to
surpassed by
think
their
I
abject
think they're
ignorance.
the Western mainline Protestants and Catholic churches and all that, and some other Protestant churches. I think they're more in terms of more zealous towards liberalism in general, right? Because, and this is what we have the Ukraine war as a perfect example, where it's basically Eurasianism, one side is Russia, versus neoliberalism, Western neoliberalism as another.
Right.
This is just a way to limit Eurasianist influence from reaching Europe, and to secure the EU neoliberal ideology within that sphere of influence. And we're seeing that, and with the farmland too. That's the worst offenders of the carbon neutral farms and all that are neoliberal countries such as Netherlands, France, Belgium. The most neoliberal countries you can think of are the ones pushing the climate change, religion, and or ideology, or whatever you want to call it, and
it's a religion,
and restricting all of that.
Yeah.
So I think what we're seeing right now is warfare between the old vestiges of personal freedom versus the neoliberal ideology of complete control via corporatism or big government. Because what we've seen since the 60s is basically a cycle of elect this center-right party and will shrink the government. They don't shrink the government, but they empower big business. And then you get the center-left, I'll stop big business and then I'll strengthen the government. They don't stop big business, but they will strengthen the government.
Correct.
So we've just been seeing that cycle go on for the last 50, 60 years.
And that's
it was Murray Rothbard called it the welfare warfare state, where you got the right and the left. The right is pushing warfare, the left is pushing welfare, and eventually they will come to an agreement where, we'll get our wars. You'll get your, giant, big government entitlement programs.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the system as it's constituted these days. You get one side pushing for war, one side pushing for government handouts, and then they come together.
They merge.
Give more and more to themselves and less to the people.
Well, the more war you perpetuate, the more you're going to deplete the population of actual jobs, other than warfare.
We are
jobs.
basically in the second Gilded Age, with the tech billionaires and the control over Congress via lobbying and other means. We probably, Elon Musk on paper is the first trillionaire in terms of today's dollars, but we've seen men like Rockefeller
publicly.
Yeah. But back in the 100 years ago, before Roosevelt kind of restricted everything or regulated everything, we had the same kind of wealth disparity.
The
robber barons.
At least they'd build a library for you.
True. Well, what do you mean? Mark Zuckerberg's building a data center here, and they strong-armed Celine in the building the data center, even though the people on the board didn't want it. But they're actually giving $10 million to a community center, so it's all right.
It's all right. But that's the point I want to make, and I want Dennis's feedback on both these. To follow up on this, but that's the idea, Teddy. You touched on it, and that's where I was going. Was the fact that when you control the resources of any populace, you undermine completely their sovereignty, their own self-determination, because if I can't take away your God-given rights as enumerated in our Constitution and espoused in our Declaration of Independence, if I can't take that away from you outright through force of will, through guns, because your populace has the right to keep and bear arms as limited as it is, depending on what state you live in and where you're at. But if I can't take away your rights straight up, then what I'm going to do is undermine what give those things that create your sovereignty. I'm going to take away your, we got cities around here with ordinances. You can't have a garden. We got cities that you can't correct rainwater. You can't do your own fire, your own wood stoves, because that's pollutant. We get all these things. And so when we go into Iran, when we go into Ukraine, when we go into these places and we take away these resources, or we restrict these, we confiscate and restrict these resources, and then we use surveillance states to then do the same thing on our own home ground, we take away the sovereignty we didn't take away your right to speech. Well, I'm up here speaking about the fact that you won't let me grow a garden in my backyard.
It's the core of the neoliberal managerial state, where the managerial class and their proxies will restrict or manage away your rights and liberties, and use the neoliberal consensus as a kind of moralistic, what's the word, as a moral kind of wall to support.
Yeah, there's all these think tank assholes
like
and academics who
well,
there's some gobbledygook about why it's such a good
it's like,
thing.
oh, well, we'll restrict your gun rights because think of the children that are being shot, or we'll restrict your freedom of speech because that could offend somebody.
Correct.
And
or even
that's hate speech and that's violence.
Or think about, we don't actually need a warrant to surveil you and FISA because think of China.
China, well, and you said it earlier too.
The flock cameras are there for your well-being.
Yep.
Correct. And you said it too. You said corporatism, that both, they foster, both sides end up fostering corporatism and bigger government ultimately. And the corporatism, that's the corpus. A corporation is a dead entity, but it is given personhood. And when that is given supremacy over the actual person, us as the individuals, we the people, then you understand the corporatocracy is just another arm of taking away that sovereignty that God has granted us. Dennis, I want some of your feedback on all that.
Well, great points by all three of you. I think you guys really did a great job discussing those things and the perspectives in the context there. And yes, the mirrored, the matrix, if you will, or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But the other thing, getting back to the resources part, what's interesting is that we've had, according to the people who know and studied this for a living, decades of underinvestment in resource development. And, it's one thing to say, well, we've got oil or rare earth, or some people say some of them really aren't all that rare, but or copper or something, but trying to get the facilities built. And like, not only is there, if you need to have a mine or a hard rock mineral mine or an oil well or natural gas well or something, the time and money to get that put in place, but also the refining. And so a lot of the refining capacity in this country has not been built. It's been shut down, or it's out of the, so there are some of these people that are pointing out that we're likely to see these wars, whether it's fought kinetically, in military ways, or fought, economically and legislatively. And so now we're seeing a lot of countries that are saying, you know what, let's repatriate our gold. Let's restrict the export of certain goods. We say, the United States says, well, we can, Trump and the other people in the government and the other administrations and the bureaucrats, well, we can control this resource or that resource. We'll show them, we'll sanction them, and we'll, freeze their assets and steal their dollars. So they say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull out of the SWIFT system, and we're going to go to the new system. It was M-Bridge, and then it was something else.
This is the Chinese one, I think.
Yeah. And so, but they've developed this new payment system, which apparently is much faster, much less expensive.
Right.
And the other idea behind it, they say, and we're going to maintain neutrality. Then they're building all these vaults, this along with the Belt and Road. They're building these vaults in all these different countries.
Right.
And they're saying, so here's what you can do. You can settle you can trade in your local currency, settle differences in gold, and have these vaults.
Yes.
And you guys can maintain gold there. And you see all these countries now, they're saying, we want to bring our gold back. We want to repatriate our gold back.
Right.
So on the one hand, political globalism is bad. We don't want one world government. But having world trade had been a tremendous boon. It had been great for the common man.
Yeah.
In terms of lifting standards of living.
100%. Yeah.
We're going in the opposite direction now. But it's also something you got two very big macro forces at work here economically. Apparently, one of them would be this thing about, and you say they want electrification. The people in these third world countries, so they want to have air conditioning and they want to have washing machines, and so they're
Obama said we can't have that over in Africa.
So they want to, there needs to be electrification. We need to rebuild in the West and in America infrastructure.
Right.
So that's going to take some, and of course it could be the data center thing. We don't know how, but even without the data centers, there's going to be a huge demand for some of these resources, including now having to rebuild the weapons stockpiles, right? But all the stuff they shot.
Right.
So you got all that. And then you've got this other aspect where the debt supply is gone so huge. The supply of money and credit, and particularly credit, is just unbelievable. What's happened? I mean, they're saying 40 trillion is the above the waterline part of the iceberg, right?
Well, wasn't there 100 trillion in
At
unfunded
least.
liabilities too?
So Kotlikoff at Boston University said it was maybe 200 trillion. Who knows? Maybe it's more. Now these are contingent deferred liabilities. Not all of them, presumably, but even if it's a fraction of that, I mean, how do you? First of all, how are we going to get the 40 trillion taken care of? And then what about then you add 3 or 4 times that, okay?
Right.
And then there's these other countries too. So that's then it gets to something else. You say you say on the one hand you say it looks like there could be, that seems like an awfully big deflationary force, except that then you have, as some of the folks are pointing out, well, what do the politicians always do? If there's like a deflationary deleveraging bubble, they're not, none of them, Trump or none of them, are going to sit there and let that happen and have things contract because, well, we got to do that so we can have a less dishonest system and get back to honest money. Nobody wants to be the president or the politician in office while that's happening, and the big corporations and the banks don't want that either.
Right.
So they're saying, well, then the next thing that's going to happen is there's going to have to be what they call the big print to try to offset the debt. And you say, well, which one's going to win in that sort of thing? So
Right.
a lot of the machinations you're seeing now in the financial markets, particularly among the commodities and the hard assets, is sort of reflecting that. People are trying to figure out, what do you do there? So this whole thing about the resources is fascinating, and it's interesting times in the old Chinese curse kind of a way.
Right.
You try to figure that out, how that's going to work out. But also there are resources like some very important things, like what so that Russia said, and I forgot what it was. There's some like an additive for diesel fuel or something, or some chemical. I don't recall what it was now, but they say you got to have that if you want to
the
have.
Deaf Blue.
Is that what it was? There was something, but they said Russia.
That's here. The Deaf Blue. They have to use the Deaf Blue here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but they said so. But there are things like that Russia and then China saying, we're not going to export some of these things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the silver market, they see a lot of people doing stuff like that. And then with copper, and then there are other minerals as well, right?
Right.
So then you say, so it's going to happen that countries are going to say, well, I guess we have to live together anyway. Maybe we got to go back in the other direction, or are they going to say, no, we're heading toward not autocracy. No, autarky. Autarky. We're heading to autarky where, we got to make it all at home. And you say, but now we lose comparative advantage and it's going to make everybody worse off at some point. But I guess the point of the whole thing was what I would try to get to is sort of a conclusion of it is we don't know how this is going to all work out. These are all issues we have to be thinking about.
Right.
And some very important people, I mean, very knowledgeable people say important, but very knowledgeable people are saying that we are heading into a scenario where we might look back and say, well, these are the good old days. And the question is, are we going to have a giant deflation?
Yeah.
Or we're going to have like a massive, are they going to have to hyperinflate to try to...
Teddy, remember the good old days when you were a black pillar and you weren't toiling in the fields for 20 hours a day? Remember those good old days when you were black pilled?
I think this is hugely important because I'm looking at this and going, what are the fundamental driving forces behind what we see in the earth today? And when we come back to these resources, I come back to the resources. Even I push back and say, some of this for the last 80 years has been just a drive. Why are we dealing with OPEC? We've got enough oil here. Well, we've got to prop up the dollar because it's the petrodollar and it's a fiat currency, and there's really nothing actually backing it other than the full faith of the people and our birth certificates and all of that. We go down that road. But I look at this, the resources of any given nation, we want to grab those and achieve this. This is totally different than, well, not even totally different. World War II, World War I, World War II, even that. The reason that the Japanese, and we allowed that as a black, I think that's called a black flag, where something's coming and you allow it to happen. Even the attack on Pearl Harbor was we knew that the Japanese were coming in there, but what precipitated that beforehand? We put a huge strain. We put an embargo, oil embargoes on all of the Japanese areas of control.
So
that
we
they
were
could-
already involved in the war. before that.
100%. We were already shipping munitions to Europe, and Great Britain to attack or to aid in attacking refuting Hitler. We were already doing that. That's why we had all of these Liberty ships going through, and the U-boats were attacking him, because we're already sending over resources for years over there to Europe. We knew that was, and we waited for this one catalyzing event so that we could legitimately on the surface get involved in the war. And you look at all of that, the nobody knows about, I pull it up for my kids and I look at it myself, just gasification machines. Nobody knows about gasification, where you have a wood burning stove on the front of a tractor that creates a gas, smoke gas coming off of that literally goes into the tractor or into a car and runs it. You can look up gasification, and you can see it. And nobody has a concept of this, but the Germans had a concept of it because they didn't have their own natural resources, and at times they had to figure out how to turn either coal into a gas in order to run their tanks and do this other stuff. And it's all about the infrastructure. One of the reasons that Napoleon bogged down, and Teddy can speak to some of this, but the reason that Napoleon bogged down, not necessarily why he lost Waterloo and a couple of the other major battles, but one of the reasons he bogged down was because they had to maintain such an infrastructure for those armies to go in. That was one of the, even the Achilles heel of Alexander the Great, when he went throughout Asia, was they had to maintain their supply lines. And so when we look at everything throughout the world, it's about our resource operations. And as to your point, Dennis, talking about, if we just go isolationist, then we eliminate ourselves from the trade that we have. I may have cucumbers and you have corn. My property is great for growing cucumbers. Your property is great for growing corn. But if I go, I'm not going to trade with you, I'm not going to deal with you, then I eliminate corn from my diet, and you eliminate cucumbers from yours. And so we've got to have this trade, but that's one of the things that at the initial second administration I thought was good. Then Dennis comes and talks to me about, tariffs and how they're being misused and misunderstood what the proper use of tariffs. And I go, oh, okay, wow. But the trade imbalance has been around for 100 years throughout through the United States. We've been being used by these foreign powers, but I look at these resource dynamics and I go,
I mean, you should be able to, free trade's good, but you shouldn't be dependent on other countries for key goods like
Yes.
pharmaceuticals and
Dude,
what have you.
they're selling for
Energy.
$10 over
But-
there and $1,000 here.
Yeah.
And excuse me, so let me, I'm sorry
Yeah,
for
go.
interrupting,
Go,
interject.
Dennis.
One reason why we got there, I think the big reason was, again, big government raising the cost of doing the stuff here, making it onerous to do here, and then getting back to the Federal Reserve and destroying the current, and the whole financialization thing. Okay, sorry.
And then it comes back to this whole full circle comes back to this and go, how much do these elements affect foreign policy from an administrative standpoint? How much do they listen to these economic and resource pressures that come in, and how much are they ignoring them to our own detriment as far as our foreign policy? And I would have liked to have gotten more into that, in depth with that with Scott, to say, dude, it's not just about this war or this conflict or this thing or that thing. What are the resources in that country? What are we doing? The whole reason that Trump is capitulating, we know right here at the table, the whole reason he's capitulating is because oil, because whether they say this strait is open, and they've said multiple times for the last 98 days, 97 days, something like that, they've said the strait is open. There's no insurance companies that will insure the tankers going through the strait, no matter what Iran says, no matter what the United States says. There's no insurance companies. They started putting their premiums at several $1 million that you're not even gonna drive your boat through there. So the oil getting through the straits has been the constraint. And Trump said, all right, look, we got to get out of this because we've got to get the oil. we don't have our infrastructure in place, and we have to prop up the petrodollar, so we have to have that resource flowing to the rest of the world, or we're all screwed. Even though I captured Maduro and I've got him sitting in a jail in Miami or wherever the hell he's at, or no, New York. I've got to get this oil flowing again. There's several thousand gallons, several thousand barrels, let alone how many hundreds of tankers sitting there waiting to try to get through the straits right now. I can't remember what the number was I heard today. Teddy, do you remember what the number was?
No.
The amount of barrels of oils, or the amount of tanker ships themselves.
200 million, maybe, I would imagine.
200 million barrels?
Maybe.
In tankers sitting there, and because of the insurance, because of the conflict, the war, and because the insurance companies won't insure them if they get mined going through there, or a drone boat goes through and takes them out, they won't insure them. They're not gonna risk that. They'd rather sit there and wait for everything to settle. And that affects the entire economy throughout the world. It's a resource.
I think another thing, too, besides that, and this is kind of in relation to how our commitment to this neoliberal ideology is we are backing Ukraine, which is targeting all these tankers in the Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea and whatnot, and when that's raising insurance costs up. And then you had, for the Gaza war, you had the Houthis in Yemen attacking and seizing ships, which also brought the insurance rate up. So this was kind of like a perfect storm of all these conflicts boiling and just drastically increasing when you had the Strait of Hormuz crisis as well.
Right.
Do you remember when last year when it did a big campaign against the Houthis, and within a couple of months that was over too, because the way that they're very skilled in their resourcefulness and guerrilla tactics, and we went over there thinking we could steamroll them, but that's not what happened.
Well, the problem is with Yemen is that they've already dealt with airstrikes by Saudi Arabia with our help since 2014, 2015, I think.
Right.
And so they were used to kind of being crafty and hiding from satellite and other kind of intelligence gathering. And they also had Iranian missiles, which for the most part would shoot down. I think we lost like a couple dozen MQ-9 drones.
Right.
And we realized that the Red Sea strain, by them blockading the Red Sea, Bab al-Mandab, was going to be more economically harmful than trying to force them into submission, which did not work when we had the Yemen civil war and the Saudis trying to, both in the ground operation sense and airstrike sense, make them
We never learn from. Was it the Patriot where he says the quote? He says, Braveheart. He says, I've seen a wounded soldier go over and protect a dying horse, his dying horse. It's like we've never learned. The reason we lose in Vietnam, the reason we lose in all of these conflicts is because you have people that live there, that care about their people and their land. And when you go into a foreign theater trying to not remove the Nazis who've already invaded, that now you're going to get the support of the indigenous people, you're going to get the French resistance, you're going to get the Belgians, you're going to get the Netherlands, you're going to get all of the resistance people, because they want those fuckers out of their land too.
You're helping them repel an invader.
Correct.
And you're not the invader.
Correct. But when you go into these other lands and you think that somehow you're going to endear them to you, or cultivate some kind of rapport with them while you came in and attacked their land, they're like, you're no different than these dictators that were over me. And the dictators might have, in their mindset, they might have even been better. And then you go, what's driving this? Because you're going to go in and attack a group of people that are going to defend their own land to their death. They're going to stand in front of their homestead, even though they could have retreated and possibly lived. They're going to stand because that's their land, and you don't get that. And yet we're doing it for resource grabs, in my opinion. And we're seeing just the ultimate annihilation of people groups, nations, ethnicities throughout the world for nothing other than elites, the elite control and chessboard moves, so that they can grab greater control.
And I think a lot of it also has to do with population control. They like to thin the herd. They think there's too many
100%.
of us wandering around. So
COVID.
why not? Yeah, why not cull the population? COVID-19 culled a lot of us, and
And this
they got
all
more
comes
coming
back
down
to,
the pike with regards to that. All the bio lab, the
right?
Ukrainian bio labs.
Dude.
You know
How
how
about
it is.
Tulsi Gabbard giving her final, a couple of her
Going out with a
final,
bang.
dude, I think she's awesome. Of course, she's got that rogue X-Men rogue
Sexy.
little gray
She's
stripe in her
hot.
hair. I love her.
Dennis, go. I think you're chomping at the bit.
What were you gonna
say
say,
something
Dennis?
there?
As always, have Mike with
More foreign policy commentary. Give it
chomping
to
at
me.
the bit, right? Well, it's ironic too. Or maybe it's not ironic, but it's sad. American history should teach us that lesson, right?
Yeah.
But the American Revolution, which was really the defense of the Revolution, which Madison and Jefferson said was they exchanged letters. I said really the Revolution was a change in the thinking and the attitudes of the people. That was the Revolution,
Right.
And then defending against the British,
which Thomas Paine's pamphlet they said was
Common
the
sense,
absolute
yeah.
was the absolute catalyst of that. It was the tipping point.
But let's not forget the great, and seriously, the great Algernon Sidney, who I don't remember exactly. He was earlier, and he was predated John.
You don't want to be the first guy.
Right, exactly.
You never want to be the first.
Because he was the pioneer, so he got the arrow in the back,
Right.
and he lost his head. But he wrote the book that Jefferson was the best book he ever read on government. It talked about the duty, not just the right, but the duty to overthrow tyrannical or arbitrary government.
Okay.
So that sort of thing. But anyway, the Americans on this continent defending their homes, and also the Southern Americans when they were invaded fought ferociously, as did the American Indians.
Yes.
Right. Now, what's interesting in some of these is a little bit of a nuance. For instance, look at the Revolutionary War, and there was violence threatened against us by the people in power, and there are actual kinetic violence that happens. Waco, Ruby Ridge, things of that nature, and then sending the people off to war that they get killed for their agenda and all that.
Yes.
And then we talk about 1776, and we're celebrating the 250th anniversary.
Yep.
So I guess 77 was when they actually formed the Articles of Confederation. So maybe it'd say that should that be the date of the anniversary of the United States? I mean, was it really anyway? Interesting
Well,
to think
even
about.
1789 with the new Constitution.
Right, but okay, but I mean, I think we just
no, I agree with you. Yeah.
so the Articles maybe, but
yeah,
but there was the Continental Congress first and second, and the second was the one that did 1776. But
right,
but the other interesting point is how even within the 13 colonies or the 13 states, these 13 colonies ought to be 13 free and independent states, the Lee Resolution.
Yes.
There was disagreement. Not everybody was on the same side. And it was I think it happened in a lot of states, but particularly in the southern states, where you had some very bloody and very, so we don't want it to get to that point where we're having another American Revolution militarily where the people are fighting each other. I mean, this would be horrible if this were to happen.
Well, Dennis, I went to Serbia, and I was there with I was hanging out with some Serbs, some Croats, and they were talking about how, oh yeah, my family used to live here for hundreds of years. Then we were brutally ethnic cleansed out of the region. Several of us died, thrown out of the country. You look over there, that's where this atrocity happened. And all these people, all these Serbs and these Croats, you wouldn't be able, unless you had the trained eye, you would think they were exactly the same. They have all the same customs. They have all very similar traditions. They look the same. They're all intents and purposes the same people, but they'll end up fighting and killing each other and committing horrendous war crimes against each other, and that's kind of how these civil wars go. So the idea of, and I've heard good-minded people talk about, I think Tom Woods is one of them, the national divorce, right? And it's a great thought, but if anything ever comes to that, because the people who are going to want out are going to be the productive people, and then the underclass, who are they going to sponge off of? Who are they going to be able to steal the resources from?
Is it
and that's
when you're
going to
Rand situation?
And that's when you're going to get the balkanization and the civil war. So unfortunately, I don't think there's any way other than total collapse, that this union is going to come to an end.
You would get a bleed in Kansas like scenario across just basically all the states,
Mm-hmm.
because there's red state.
Explain that for the
Well, bleed in
audience.
Kansas was the prelude to the Civil War in Kansas, Nebraska. You had a bunch of people from Southerners,
Kansas, Missouri, right?
Kansas, Missouri,
Yes.
Nebraska. You had a bunch of Northerners and Southerners moving in these states, trying to make it aligned, or territories before they became states, and trying to make
So like
it
Californians coming to Texas and bringing their blue state ideology, even though their states collapsed.
something like that. But it's
Yes.
they were trying to gain more.
They came into a free region and tried to bring their ideology.
Yeah, they
and
tried to bring their
influence.
ideology and make it join their respective
Okay.
side, like North versus South, and that resulted in a basically civil strife where they were killing each other in droves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's always you have red states and blue states, but you have red areas and blue states, and you have blue areas and blue states. So if that happens, it would be worse than total collapse.
Can we just do Escape from New York type situation where we just put a wall around these blue cities and let the cities collapse within themselves, and then the reds, because even California and New York and all these other, the vast majority of the counties are red, but it's
Well,
these
you're in
inner cities.
construction. Start building it.
I'm just saying,
I
it's
think
like
I think
let's just build walls around these cities and let them have
think
the gang warfare in there.
I think the only there's only one option if that kind of scenario happened would be that would probably be the least chaotic, would be a partition of India situation where India split into Pakistan and India, or British India, and you had a lot of the Muslims go to Pakistan, and you had a lot of the Hindus
Yeah,
in Pakistan go to India.
you're like,
Even though
dude,
that resulted
we don't want you here.
That resulted in a lot of clashes and starvation, and over a million
Right,
people died.
and India and Pakistan have been at war ever since.
Yes, but that if there was such a thing, that would be okay.
That'd be the cleanest style break we
Right,
could possibly get, maybe.
Yeah, but
Dennis?
I was going to say there's another aspect to think about with this. And again, you look at whether it's the American Revolution or even Lincoln's violent counter-revolution in the 1860s. The fighting isn't a necessity.
It's an outflow.
Right, but then there's a guy named Jeremiah Babe.
I like that name.
Yeah, but he does a video every night. If you look him up, he's got two. He does one where he talks about like the financial and economic and geopolitical things going on. He's got one of those. I think he's Jeremiah B from Alabama because he moved. He's originally from Illinois, but then he was living in California. Then he took his family and they went from California to South Alabama.
Dude,
So he's talking about all this different
that's
stuff.
a revolution in itself.
Well, and he says get out of the big cities. He says, and he's very concerned about this thing that we're heading in this direction anyway.
Mhm.
Now, some people like Tom Woods or Marjorie Taylor Greene brought this up too.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
They would say, and I read somebody on Lou Rockwell wrote about this, that balkanization really isn't the splitting up; it's the forcing together of all these disparate groups.
Right.
And the disparate groups, under certain conditions, if we were really the America that was in the Declaration of Independence and the Articles and even in the Constitution,
I think
that could work.
but
we don't have that anymore, though.
I think the problem with balkanization and the former Yugoslavia in general is that you had all these religious and ethnic groups that were forced together in this communist dictatorship that were only held together by brotherhood and unity, by Tito's iron fist, that had a lot of fresh previous grievances in World War II and
I like when
World War I.
Tito was
Right.
like, "Hey, this isn't
Right.
this isn't chaotic enough. Let's throw some Albanians in there."
Right, but it could be that,
Yeah.
that the direction we're headed with politics being so important and being the life and death issue it is, and with all the financial problems, and frankly, as many people say, well, how do we vote our way out of this? Getting back to the whole debt thing and these other things, so they say maybe we're headed that way anyway.
Right.
And so, and Teddy brought up a great point, and it's true because we look at these things. My wife and I sometimes will say, well, here's something that's happening in this state that we think would be an interesting state to consider to go to, and something really bad is happening in this area, and might be an
Right.
urban area or something,
Yeah.
And there are places in Michigan. Well, we'd love to be in these parts of Michigan, but then you're still
You're
under
still
Whitmer.
in Michigan.
If
Yeah,
you're,
you're in Whitmer. Yeah.
So then there's how do you figure all that out? And then the whole thing, well, about the secessionism and the national divorce, there's the generational aspect too. because you look at for like some of the things that for again my generation, Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and all that, and you look at the burden that's being put on the younger people, they're going to say, well, wait a minute, why
are we paying for this?
Yeah, and you look what's happened to the housing market. I mean, it's this is
crazy.
It's crazy what's going on here. And again, the older people having the higher propensity to vote are getting their way, but that can only last for so long.
Correct.
And so we may be headed that way even without the separationism. But then it's going to be very messy and
I don't know how the generational breaks down. Teddy might help me on this, but the 40s, 50s, and on up, they're the ones that I hear not on a consistent basis, but periodically, where they're saying, if shit gets any worse here in Michigan, I'm either off to Tennessee or Kentucky or Florida.
Well,
that's what Larry's
Texas.
always saying.
Yeah, that's what a lot of
but
people on the older side, like Larry and other
Right.
people I know, saying, "Well, if Jocelyn Benson wins, I'm moving to Tennessee."
so that's
Great.
that's again
Leave us
that's
high and dry here.
that's what you're saying, Dennis. Is
I might
it's
believe it
not
too, though.
necessarily a balkanization to where it, as Teddy points out, not factioning into ethnicities fostered by a philosophical idea, but just because an individual state has better options for a demographic, not an ethnicity, but a demographic, they're going, that's my option. I'll sell my stuff and I'll move to that state, which
But I
is
think
an
that's another
interesting
benefit.
dynamic,
That's another
right?
benefit of federalism. That's another positive that we're still benefiting from the founding fathers' design, where you do have 50. It's not like how it should have been, where it's basically 50 countries under highly divisible states in
Right.
loosely band together union.
But if you
that
make
was changed, but still we still have a lot of freedom.
But if you do like a DeSantis or even to a lesser
DeSantis
extent
or
Texas with the
no, he sucks. But
But I'm saying even
yeah, Abbott sucks.
But
But
what I'm saying is
DeSantis,
where they make their state more appealing, and
Yeah.
then they have a better demographic and a better populace who are seeking the things that are appealing to them. Whereas look at Larry likes to point out every Tuesday that Whitmer is
a slot kid.
Well, Whitmer has caused a mass exodus of business and people throughout our state. It hasn't hit epidemic proportions, but it's because a lot of people, again, they're going to stand over their dying horse and defend it sometimes because that's my property. I mean, I don't want to leave Michigan. I have my man cave here. I have my property here. It's my 3 acres. It's it's.
why should we leave? It's the other people that suck.
Exactly.
It's your family that's been here forever.
Right, but that's I've got
Ben Shapiro said, just move. Who cares if your family's been there?
Well, he can move. Ben Shapiro could move to Israel, like if the
You have
second stuff like hits the fan.
Listen,
So
Shane, I think you mischaracterized the way that I said that. I said that if you don't like the policies that are there in the state that you're in, you can go ahead and move to another state. You're free to do that. That's what you have a free. But freedom is not universal throughout the world, and the Jews are being suppressed over in the Middle East. They don't have that same freedom where they can just move from their country. This is the country that God has designed for them to be. It's their property.
You don't get an ethno state, but we get an ethno state. That's what Ben believes.
Well,
so Dennis.
yeah.
Dennis. Fuck. Dennis. Dovetailing on what we've talked about. We've talked about the Constitution.
Policy.
Yeah, it's been gone by quick. Can we talk about the Constitution? But some libertarian philosophers weren't so keen on the Constitution. One of them being Lysander Spooner.
Ooh.
He said we should strike the root. That's what he said, right? That was
Actually, it was either Emerson or Thoreau. It might have been Emerson, or it was Thoreau, I think. We can
okay.
look it
Well,
up.
talk about the works of Lysander Spooner and the importance of striking the root.
Okay, but before you do that, I got to point this out, and I'm going to cut the camera on him. Shane has been trying for months, if not a year, to get the two of you together on the same side of the table, let alone the same podcast. You guys met each other tonight, and I'll tell you what, having Black Bill Teddy and Dennis Marburger, the legend, how many awards have you guys given him? At least one.
What was that?
How many awards have you?
Lifetime Achievement Award
dude,
for
he's-
Liberty.
Dude, he's for Liberty.
Yes.
To have the two of you, having Scott was on tonight was awesome. Okay, that tipped this off and did this. But I've watched tonight while me and Shane struggled to articulate any points whatsoever. I watched Teddy and Dennis both feed off each other. This 24-year-old, and I won't say Dennis's age, but he's in the
Ancient.
He's in the wisdom age for sure.
Prehistoric.
Boomer versus Zoomer.
But there's no verses. I watched the two of you just coalesce.
Boomer and Zoomers
just-
unite.
and just
Unstoppable.
I watched this whole cohesion between the two of you and you guys feeding off each other's points, and it's beautiful because what it tells me, Dennis, and it should tell you, is there's hope for this generation. Now dive into this gentleman that was
Lysander Spooner.
Go ahead,
And the
do it.
importance of striking the roots.
Yeah,
Do it.
And I think that was actually Henry. That might have been Henry David Thoreau that said that. I believe the quote was, "For every 1,000 hacking at the branches of tyranny or something, there is one striking at the root," something like that. But Spooner, would have agreed with that. Of course, Spooner said that. Well, he's famously amongst libertarians and anarchists said that the Constitution either didn't prevent the government from growing into a tyranny or it enabled it. And in either case, he said it had no need to exist or something of that nature. But he also said some other things. I think he actually did support nullification and abolition and secession. He outside of being an advocate, he had started a private postal system, the American Mail Company, and he was making money and providing better service than what was available through a government post office. So they passed a law to grant the government a monopoly, and they drove him out of that. But so Spooner wrote a lot of very important things, and you think about for somebody, I mean, he was around in the mid 19th century, right? So
yes,
for somebody to express the things the way he did, there were maybe some others. I mean, building on what Bastiat had written, and then I think Benjamin Tucker came along about that same time.
When did Bastiat write the law? When was that?
Well, see, Bastiat died, I believe in 1850. He died.
Okay.
He died as a young man. So the law came out before that. If I remember, that's an excellent book. And Bastiat talked about the broken window fallacy.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was talking about there was that somebody would say, he said, well, what if the socialists would say, well, if you break a window, you're going to stimulate economic activity because now somebody's got to get the window replaced. He said, yeah, that's great, but then the resources and the money that goes to replacing the window can't go to do something else that might have happened otherwise. And of course, people will say, like with wars, and the Keynesians will say, oh, that would just do something, some sort of activity, even a war that's going to help the economy. And then,
Didn't Keynes say that, something about like if there are people who just dug holes and then
right, and then fill them up again, and
yeah,
give them some money.
Give them some money. That was kind of legitimately suggested that as like a make work plan.
Right. So there was a great series of videos. The first two were particularly good. And I'm going to forget who, but it was Keynes versus Hayek. Well, those were the first
rap
two.
video, right?
Yeah, and the second one is really good. So they're rapping back and forth, and it goes back and forth. They're testifying to Congress or they're boxing, and yes, so there's a lot of rap. And in fact, we should get that while we're talking. Maybe we could play that as the outro or something, or the outgo thing. Okay. This video of Keynes versus Hayek.
I'll find it for you.
It's about 10 minutes, but it's outstanding. It's very well done. But getting back to Spooner, no, Spooner was a great American thinker. Though he may have been an atheist. I think, I'm not sure, but I would have disagreed with that part. But he wrote very, very cogently, and he basically said, the southern states had the right to secede, but also he thought slavery should be abolished. And of course, there were northern abolitionists who advocated for secession. William Lloyd Garrison said no union with slavers. And then some of the people said, well, if the northern and southern states just break up, there's literally physically an open border along most of it, right? So the freed slaves could get across to the north, and they thought that would be.
It would have been easier it would have actually been easier for the the escaping slaves.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have been bound by
the Fugitive Slave Act.
union. to uphold returning them, they could have been, well, we don't have to send these back to these states. These states seceded. We don't have to send them back.
Right. And now, and what happened before that, and one of the causes of secession that the southern states like South Carolina and others wrote about, they were mad that northern states were nullifying the Fugitive Slave Act, and so then what would happen is that in Michigan and Wisconsin and other places, there were laws passed that said we're not going to let the state government facilities enforce this sort of thing, and it was of course a very cruel system. It even had
Was that Prigg versus Pennsylvania?
well that was earlier. Yeah, that was one of the cases that
Okay.
but that was an early case in that, and I think that went the wrong way. And there were cases where these bounty hunters would come up and they were taking. And there's the movie 12 Years a Slave, and there were situations where somebody
Right.
nobody should be a slave, of course, but there were even some people that hadn't been.
But Prigg versus Pennsylvania, I believe, was a bad ruling in general, but it did carve out the abilities for states to not comply with any of the
Okay,
orders.
yeah.
And that was kind of where the anti-commandeering doctrine came out of, because the states could not comply, and that would make it virtually impossible for the feds to come in and do the enforce the Fugitive Slave Acts in these northern states.
Well, and the anti-commandeering doctrine was affirmed at least 4 times by the Supreme Court, which is interesting because they don't normally do the right thing when it comes to government power.
Right.
And there was a more recent thing was the Prince Mack decision.
Yes.
Regarding gun rights, but there were other things too, and some people get mad about that, and they say, so the anti-commandeering doctrine, for anybody listening to this, it says that even if a federal edict or law is constitutional, the feds cannot force the states or the municipalities to enforce their law. The feds have to use their own people, personnel, to do it, which then ties in, as Judge Napolitano and 10th Amendment Center has talked about, something that Madison said: a refusal to cooperate with the officers of the Union. He said to the anti-ratification group that would be a good way to resist federal usurpation of power and growing tyranny. And in individual cases, yes, that has happened, but of course the system is still,
Yeah.
So then we get back to the other question, and I thank you for Lysander Spooner. There's no need to pander; just read some Lysander Spooner. But the other thing is, what do we do now? Because we can't vote our way out of this, or at least it wouldn't seem like we could. So what's the answer going to be? Is it going to be like a fellow named John Polomny talks about, and others have as well? And John does a lot of investment commentary, but he was talking to Dave Collum on Contrarian Corner, and that's got a good host, and it's Contrarian with a K and Corner with a K. But you see that Dave Collum and John Polomny on there, and John was talking about soft secessionism, and he's not the first person to bring this up. But the idea is that more and more states will, in some cases, just ignore some things the feds are doing, or do things that are different than what people in other states are doing.
Yes.
And then so you see a state like California trying to basically have this wild, growing welfare state and everything else, and force everybody else to go along with it.
And we just don't participate.
Yeah, and also other aspects too. Yeah, the welfare part's going to be tough because when you start talking about the money now, it's really rough.
Part of the entanglement is they get they have the states send so much money to the Fed, and then the Fed sends money back. It's a laundering situation.
Yeah,
and that's where the entanglements. If we didn't have that kicking up to the government gangsters, the godfathers, the government godfathers, and the Fed, you wouldn't have as much control over the individual states, and they could dictate their own policies and their own constitutional edicts much more freely and much more appealing to different demographics and people that want to move there, right?
like under the Confederation, and that's the difference. The Confederation was the states decided they had a requisition system. They would say, okay, we'll give you this.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to the feds taking it, say, okay, now we're going to give it. Right.
Exactly. Exactly. I want to ask this question to kind of finish up, especially of our two historians here. And I love this. Dynamic of Teddy, the youthful, and the elder statesman sitting here. I love both of this. I'm watching
Yoda and Luke Skywalker.
but I'll even give Luke a lot more wisdom than what he had in the original trilogy. But I want to point this.
I know you're on the team. You're on Team Stormtrooper. I get it.
100%. But I want to ask this question of the two of you, because our topic tonight, foreign policy. I want to keep coming back to that, and we could go down so many subjects, and it would be awesome. And we've had a great conversation tonight, especially when Scott was here, and then post our Zoom guest. But I want you guys to kind of pontificate a little bit on what the original. Yeah, I messed that up. Thank you. I put Horton in like 2 spots and then went to Norton for some reason.
Scott Norton was a pro wrestler.
True. That's probably why I did that.
And then there's Norton from the Honeymooners.
Yeah.
Norton,
Norton. Straight to the moon. But I want to do this as our kind of final focus of foreign policy tonight. What do you guys? What do you see in the founding fathers' opinions about foreign policy? Because we've seen in Venezuela, we've seen the Monroe Doctrine implicated. What's the invoked?
The Donroe Doctrine.
We saw
if
the
you
Monroe
will.
Doctrine invoked, right? And there's some aspects of it. Dennis, I've had a number of shows with you where you push back on tariffs and those ideas, even though tariffs was one of the constitutional, but how they're implemented modern day has a huge impact, and we know that taxation is theft. So I want to kind of pick your 2 brains across the table historically, since you're a history major and Dennis, you're the elder statesman, and can just spout off people I've never even heard of consciously that you quote from them. I want to hear from you guys what our founding fathers really thought about foreign policy as far as the fledgling nation, the new nation, what they viewed that as. Of course, we can read Jefferson, we can read Madison, we can read so many of our founding fathers. We know that Washington talked about, not having foreign entanglements and warning us about party duality, having these parties. We don't want to do that because that would create factions that could be beholden to foreign entities that would be swaying them. So I want to dive into this a little bit at the end of the show. What comes to your mind in the forefront about foreign policy as far as our founding fathers? Which one of you want to go first?
Oh, Teddy should go first.
Look at this. Look at this. I love it. I love it. And I gave you enough of a preamble describing what my question was so that you guys could prepare in your minds the answer. But Teddy, you want to start?
Well, I'd like to just compare what the founding fathers originally fought out in a nutshell is that there should be as little foreign entanglement as possible unless there was a direct threat to the United States interest or Americans. So
Right.
we had the Barbary pirates, for example, in the first few years of the nation, where they kept raiding our ships and enslaving the sailors and all that. So
Right.
that's where you had the Navy and the Marines
in the Mediterranean.
in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And that's where you had the first intervention, just kind of have the Barbary pirates stop interfering in American trade.
And have you ever had a boomer tell you that, well, that's why we need to be over there now, because the Barbary pirates.
The Barbary
We've been
pirates.
fighting them since 1803.
The Barbary pirates are stealing our oil from the Strait of. I don't know what it's called, but Fox News told me it. Damn it. Even though we're doing the same thing as the blockade, we're raiding their oil.
Right. So you had the Barbary
but
pirates.
we had a legitimate reason to protect
Right.
American, citizens and whatever trade we had back then, incentives. But now we're kind of stuck, and this is due to the Cold War for the most part, is that we're stuck in over entanglement.
Yes.
Where we just are allies with all these different countries that just too many different countries that either have conflicting interests, spheres of influence, and economic interest. And example could be Pakistan, where we're allied with Pakistan in the Cold War because India was communist leaning throughout the entire Cold War for the most part. And then that evolved into Afghanistan, where the Soviets invaded, and we gave the ISI all this money and weapons, including Stinger missiles, for the most famously,
Right.
where they funded the Mujahideen, which would evolve into the Taliban,
Right.
and that devolved into, and that was entangled in Pakistan's interest to keep Afghanistan destabilized, because a stable Afghanistan is a threat to the very existence of the Pakistani state itself,
Mm-hmm.
due to just ethnic divisions caused by the British. Um,
And as far as that whole conflict over there, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Oh, my camera didn't work. Sorry. I was trying to do a really cool thing and it didn't work. I was going to say this. I was going to say, dude, if they could just keep making carpets, we'd have been great.
Magical
The rugs,
carpet.
the magic rugs,
like the
Pakistan-
Persian.
Persian rugs. If they just could have kept making Persian rugs, we'd have been fine. But somehow they wanted to get Stinger missiles and bomb each other. Continue, Teddy.
That in turn, after the war ended, Pakistan continued arming all these armed groups, and eventually the Taliban.
Yeah.
Before and after the U.S. invasion, and now Pakistan is now fighting the Taliban. That's a little known kind of minor war that's been going on the last few months. But my main thing is another thing too is that more importantly is that we're entangled in Israel. We were entangled with Israel.
I knew you were going to bring up tiny hats somewhere.
Well, we were entangled with Israel. We were entangled with Saudi Arabia. We were entangled with Iraq, and we were funding the Shah as well.
Even
during the
Rocket
Cold
Man
War.
in Korea.
But one of the things is that people arguing like Iran's like the main sponsor of terror, or the head of the snake of like Islam or something like that, where Saudi Arabia and Qatar, who are we are allies or fund ourselves and protect, they are the main sponsors of funding Sunni Wahhabi groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda. Which
You mean
And
like
don't forget our friends in Azerbaijan.
You mean like there were 14 Saudi Arabians on 9/11?
That's another
If
thing,
you
too,
believe
where-
that narrative?
that's another thing too, where
Who are those dancers? The dancers?
Oh, they were
and that-
Jewish.
that's another
on the
thing
rebel-
too, is that we're
Jewish-
entangled with Azerbaijan,
Yeah.
where we fund Israel, and then Israel funds the butcher Aliyev, and then we're also currently funding the I'd like to say the incompetent fool Pashayan in Armenia, who is also becoming a dictator, but it's okay 'cause he
Traitor.
likes the traitor.
He's a traitor.
But it's okay, but he likes the EU, so we'll give him a pass. We'll let him arrest the opposition.
Holy shit. I'm waiting for you guys to make bunk beds like Step Brothers, right? Dude, Dennis is over here. He's like, oh, you.
I call it,
Teddy's making points.
honey, we have a third son. I feel like Fred McMurray.
I fucking love it.
But my main point is that the founding fathers didn't realize that foreign entanglements would mean more harm to Americans by getting involved in foreign politics, foreign influences, foreign spheres. Besides, while we had these minor wars and conflicts, like I forget what it was called, but we were at war with France navally because they kept
The
raiding our ship.
quasi-war.
Quasi-war.
Yeah.
And then we had the Barbary Pirates, and then we had the War of 1812, and that was only started because the British were oppressing a lot of our sailors and seizing our ships in the Atlantic during the height of the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much of the war was in the Great Lakes here.
Yep.
You know, that's it. It's astounding when you go, wow, we had this. The British through the Canadian side coming in, and we had the Americans through the American side coming in. We go to here, Michiganders. We go to Fort Michilimackinac, and we look at it and go, wait, there was actually warfare, and we equate it to revolutionary, but it was War of 1812.
Yeah, it was War of 1812.
It's amazing.
Mackinac Island obviously has a lot of history on that. You have
And Detroit, too, right?
Detroit. You have River Raisin, where the massacre was. You have that Battlefield Park.
Well, that quote from John Paul Jones.
I have not yet begun to fight.
Right, and he's like, he's the one that boarded the other ships, and these were ships that were built and sailed here on the Great Lakes. And you go, wow, you don't even think about that aspect of it. It's huge.
Well, the founding fathers in total saw that foreign entanglement in terms of alliances and politics would bring more harm than good to the country. While if we were going to be entangled in foreign wars, it would be because we had to necessarily defend our own people and our.
We had no choice.
We had no choice.
Right.
So I think that's what.
What was the second military? So first the Marines, Army, Marines, and then the Coast Guard, right?
Well, the Navy.
Navy. So not Coast Guard, but Navy. I'm trying to think of the succession of the founding of each one. 1775 was the Continental Army, right? So that would be our Army. and then the Marines, the Merchant Marines, the Marines.
I think the Marines were founded after the Revolutionary War. I'm not sure.
I think they were. I thought they
Or maybe there was a unit of Marines.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not 100% sure.
Yeah,
And
I
what
think
would
of
what would the
timelines.
founding fathers have called that? A standing army?
Well,
well.
I just think of when we celebrate their anniversaries, the different branches of
Yeah.
our armed forces, we celebrate their anniversary. I try to
I'm
think
trying
of the
to
founding
tee.
dates.
I'm trying to
yeah,
tee.
yeah.
Well, I
Dennis
mean, we
Marburger
had
off.
we also had the state militias too, which is the National Guard now. But
Yeah.
the state militias were the
We got
kind
to
of
go back to the state militias.
yeah.
National Guards. So Dennis, same question. I know you were getting teed up by Teddy multiple times. You're like, he's coming to the tee box, and Dennis is looking. He's going, "That was a nice shot, Teddy. I'm gonna see if I can put my ball right down the green just the way you did it." He's getting excited. So this foreign policy from our founding fathers, what was their ideology or their concept of this?
So, like with many things, thank you. Great thoughts from Teddy and Shane once again, finding the provocative. Let's get them going here.
Fuel in the fire.
Fuel in
Right,
the
right.
fire.
Are
Gasoline
you a part,
on the fire.
Are you part of the Flynn Network?
Oh shit!
Oh,
Shots
you're on to
fired!
me.
Shots fired!
But
Go, Dennis.
Thank you, Jeremy. Well, the last part first. Yes, regarding the standing army, and of course, and any topic we say the founding fathers, they weren't always, frequently weren't unified in just one
Mhm.
glob, or they all were agreed on something. But something that they were very unified on was war powers, and so what Trump has done, what Biden has done, what Trump has done before, what Obama did, what Bush did, what Clinton did, and so on and so forth, going back to all these undeclared wars.
Yeah, yeah.
They were
Post World War II.
right. So they were very clear about not having the executive make that decision.
Yes.
The war, yes, would be the executive becomes the commander in chief when the military is called into service
Correct.
into these wars. But
Yes.
but and the War Powers Act is unconstitutional anyway. But the whole point was, and Madison said they wanted to slow down the train, so to go through the whole situation, and then have look at the facts, and then Congress would decide whether they would declare that a state of war existed or not.
Correct.
Jefferson did this with the Barbary Pirates. He said, and Jefferson was relatively hawkish, as it turns out, more so than Adams.
Which is wild when you look at both their
Yes. Many people would be surprised by that.
philosophies. Yeah.
Right. But Adams said, well, just pay the tribute. And Jefferson said, well, if you start paying it, the guy's going to jack it up. And what are you doing this for?
Yeah. Once you pay the rapist, you're not. I mean, the therapist.
Yeah.
Rapist.
It was actual peace through strength back then, unlike the catch or the talking point that we have now.
But it was also peace through strength, but also peace through, but strength through peace.
Mm-hmm.
Strength through peace is really what we should be thinking about. Digressing, just look what happened to France, getting involved in all sorts of wars. They went from being extremely strong. Look what happened to Germany with all the wars.
Yeah, they were extremely strong, and then they denigrated into
And
impotence.
And because war after war after war, they lost their strength.
Correct.
You see,
Yes.
and as von Mises pointed out, is only when we have peace that we can have the flowering of civilization, and so the strengthening of our liberty, the strengthening of our prosperity, and through
Yes.
those things, even the strengthening of our ability to defend ourselves, either individually or collectively.
It's a misnomer
Are
that
enhanced.
wars help the economy or bring more prosperity. The vast majority of the time, it's the exact opposite.
Exactly, and it's also a misnomer, Shane, and that was a great point by you. It's also a misnomer that doing what they've been doing shows strength. It really shows weakness, and it shows our
does.
weakness in appeasing these power mongers and warmongers,
Right.
and that have either political authority or have usurped political authority. But the other thing was, so the idea was that you had to have the Congressional Declaration of War, and another thing that was a very hot topic
Yeah.
was, should there be a standing army? I think there was general agreement. Well, you want to have a navy to protect the coasts, but the state militias.
Okay.
That was the thing, and many of them said that was going to be the and the Second Amendment, the militia clause, was not saying, well, you have to have a militia in order to be able to have the right to have guns. They said no, it's a natural right to be able to have to own the means of self-defense, including firearms.
Yes.
And if you're going to have a militia,
Yeah.
the people have to have firearms and know how to use them. And if you want to have a free country, you want to have militia rather than a standing army. That was a huge point that they were making there.
And the idea would be that, when you're declared war upon, go get the militia. Let's raise the army up.
Yeah,
Let's
Right,
get them
right.
going.
right.
Well, isn't that? I wanted to point this out. There's a couple things I want to point out. When we're talking about the declaration of war, right, under the executive, when you think about a militia, if we were attacked, any given state is attacked in that moment, in that whatever, how many days, right? It's attacked. That say somebody pulls up next to the Carolinas, okay, and attacks the Carolinas. It's the duty of the governor to rally their militia and go there and do that. And then ultimately, if it becomes a more state beyond those one particular or a couple states, it would be the executive's branch to step in, and then Congress would step in and do a declaration of war. But they're having the militia, the Second Amendment enumerated militia as a staple for the founding of this country. Doesn't that somewhat prevent or aid the executive in going, listen, no matter what happens, we can roll out state by state a militia, well-regulated militia, according to our national constitution, of people who are well armed, farmers who know how to go out and trap and shoot and do all sorts of things. We can roll them out, and then if it becomes a conflict, it's easy for Congress to come together in a moment and empower the executive to coalesce that into a larger body.
Well, and
Does that make sense?
right. The other idea too is, rather than have a situation like we had before the war on terror, but the whole thing in Yugoslavia, right, it was either Hillary Clinton or might have been Madeleine Albright. One of them said, "What's the point of having this big military if we never use it?" And so, but the idea here was that what they thought of, and there was debate, but it was a lot of the leading theoreticians and founders and revolutionary patriots said, we don't want to have a standing army because it could either be used to oppress the people,
Correct.
or for imperialist adventures abroad, which Robert E. Lee warned about actually right after the Civil War in his letters with Lord Acton.
Yeah.
But the state militia would be there, so that okay, now we got defense, but we make it less likely that the executive will want to engage in warfare for his own aggrandizement.
If we don't have a standing army, if we don't have this Roman legions, we don't have this other stuff. Again, we had the Third Amendment, right? The Third Amendment to the Constitution says you can't go in and just take over somebody's house, right? You can't standing army. They didn't want standing armies originally from our founding fathers. They wanted to have citizen militias so that every citizen had that ability. Again, you're fallen horse, you're defending your land, you're doing this. You're going to be the one to rise up. And the only stipulation is be well regulated. Have somebody
when the
trained.
shit
Be
goes
trained.
down, instead of having a military, when the shit goes down, just call up Bill and Mike Null.
And we even
Be
had
like,
that.
get the team back together.
And we even had that exactly the no brother, but we even had that concept as reflected in the writings of the Japanese, where they said we dare not attack the mainlands because behind every blade of grass is a firearm, because they knew that there was this concept of having this citizen militia behind it, and so there's this aspect that's the key to this is. As long as we have each and every citizen who is willing and has a vested interest to be armed, we don't need the standing army.
Right. Now, another aspect of this, so there's that, and then as Teddy brought out the idea of not having the entangling alliances. We've talked about this,
Of course, yes.
And it was enunciated by many of them. Washington, in his famous farewell address, went into this, and he had there's several reasons.
Avoid
for it.
foreign entanglements. Avoid parties. Avoid.
What's interesting, though, quick aside, is that Representative Tom Barrett, who's the congressman of this area, he's been taking a lot of shit from a lot of so-called patriotic conservatives.
We had a little pushback on our show.
Yeah, because he just wants war powers to be declared.
Yeah, he voted against the war powers.
Yeah, for to be able to, continue the war in Iran. Now, hopefully the war's over, but just for being one of the very few Republicans with the who actually takes their oath seriously,
The cojones.
he's getting trashed by boomers on Facebook who, they'll have the "Don't Tread on Me" flag and the Constitution, but when it comes down to it, they're just Bush era big government status when it matters.
And the American Revolutionary Patriots would say that they are 21st century redcoats and should be deported back to England. But anyway, so the
agreed, Dennis.
Tarred
That's
and
a great
feathered, then deported.
yes,
Dude,
yes.
think about that. Did we say that quick? Tarred and feathered?
Scalded with
Holy
hot tar.
shit.
Yeah.
Scalded
Deformed,
with hot tar.
deformed for the rest
And
of your
then
life, living in
some
horrible
little-
pain.
A bunch of
Now
men,
let's go burn down his house.
and then they came over with a pillow full of feathers, cut it open, and just feathered the shit out of him.
But so anyway, I know a more pleasant topic.
No, keep going, Dennis. The foreign entanglements of our founding fathers.
Right. So they wanted to avoid that, and there were several reasons. One is we have strategic advantages due to location. Also, he didn't want the country divided. You can see what happens with the Middle East situation.
100%.
Now, Washington was thinking about the British and the French, because nobody, as
Yeah.
Tom Woods points out, no Christian theologian and nobody of that era would even believe the things that are being said today to justify what's happened in the Middle East,
Right.
and including the geopolitical ethno-supremacist state of Israel or U.S. interventionism over there.
Correct.
This is all crazy.
Yeah.
And nobody was talking about that. But he said Washington, the other problem is going to be is that then when people say, I don't think we should be showing favoritism to one country as
Right.
opposed to another, oh, you're biased. And so it's almost like he understood human nature, and of course he didn't know the details, but that we see today.
Yeah.
But also, so there were things that even happened before, like with the Barbary Pirates. So Jefferson went back to Congress, I was going to say, and he said, here are the facts as I see them,
Right.
and you tell me what to do. This is your job. Before that,
Right. He's the one that. So I'm looking this up on Wikipedia. He's the one that dispensed the Navy, the U.S. Navy, in 1801. After Jefferson sent in March 1801, he sent the
Jefferson
U.S.
sold out, man.
He sent the Navy. But I was trying to read it on this. Originally, weren't they privateers? Weren't they sent forth as
Well,
privateers?
so I was
Dennis,
gonna- I
Dennis,
was-
address that,
letters
address
of
that.
marque.
mark and reprisal. Yeah, I was going to
Yes,
along
yes,
with
do that,
militia.
do
That was the other, the letters of marque and reprisal.
So before we sent our own troops over there, we're like, you know what? We will give the federal government will give you some money to protect our
Bounties.
shipping
Yeah.
over there. What were they called? Donkeys?
Well, no, bounties, but
bounties,
privateers.
yeah,
Yeah, and there were privateers. I think in the Revolution, weren't there? I think there were some
Yeah. yeah.
privateers in the Revolution. So, and the English had used privateers, right? Wasn't Drake, Sir Henry Drake? Wasn't he a privateer for the Queen of England against the,
Probably,
against the
but
Spanish?
it makes
Yes, he
more
was.
sense because when you have a monetary incentive and you don't have a property incentive, when you have a property incentive, right? This is biblical. This is going back from the Genesis 1, right? The Lord said, I give you, I'm going to put you in the garden and cause you to tend it. And then Abraham, I'm going to give you this land. It's always been land possession as part of your inheritance from God has been a dynamic that we can't overlook everything. So when we come to this new nation, this new country, right, we have to fight a little bit against some Native Americans who are fighting amongst themselves, and we establish our own things. We've got the Sooner states, we've got these other states, we're establishing things. So you've got this Barbary pirates in the Mediterranean, and we're just trying to get some goods from there, and they're attacking them. Well, you don't have a vested property interest, but you do have a monetary interest. So we're going to pay you to ultimately be privateers and defend that. But then ultimately Jefferson comes into power and he says, all right, we're going to dispatch the Navy to protect our ships coming back. That's where we're at right now.
Right, with congressional, but having
Congressional
Congress
approval,
declaring
100%.
it.
Yeah,
Congress directing it.
Correct.
Or telling him to
well
do that.
before this, when were the war powers put in? 19
in the 1970s at some point. Yeah.
something like that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so- yeah.
Continue.
And they try to use it as a loophole. But
Yeah.
anyway, getting back. But even before, yeah. So he went to Congress, and before that,
Yeah.
apparently there was a situation with the Indian tribes during Washington's administration.
Yeah.
Where the Indians were attacking, and I don't think it was happening in Michigan, but probably if we went due south, so it was that far east,
Okay.
just west of Appalachia,
Yeah.
in Ohio, Kentucky, and
There's
Tennessee.
still a lot of Indian country.
Yeah. So they were having problems. So then the governor said, he said, well, what should we do? What can we do?
Right.
And what Washington sent back to them and to the military people, well, you can do defense, but defense only, and we have to go to Congress if we're going to do anything beyond defense.
Right.
And so not like, okay, now we're going to go on the offensive, and you got to wait for congressional approval. So Washington did that, and I think
Yes.
the same thing happened with the quasi-war. Was that with Madison? I think it might have been. Or
Isn't that
was,
what Teddy pointed out, the quasi-war?
was it Madison or was that Adams? It wasn't
I thought it was-
Jefferson. I think it was Madison, wasn't it? No.
Madison was 4th, right?
Yeah,
I
Madison
think
was.
it was Adams. I thought the quasi-war was.
Well, okay, maybe that was Adams. But
Okay,
he.
so
look it up.
second.
I'll look it up.
Second. So yeah.
But anyway, there was a strong tradition of that, and it's also the law.
Right.
But there's
Right.
great logic to it. So what's ended up happening is over a long period of time.
It was Adams.
Okay, so it was Adams.
Adams
Okay,
quasi-war,
with the
right.
quasi-war.
Okay.
So what's happened when they went through the ratification debates, there was the anti-ratifying group was very concerned things would be forgotten. They said this is going to this might last for a few years or maybe a generation or 2 or 3, but eventually, so it's going to all just be symbolism and words and that sort of thing. And how are you going to control this from becoming usurped? And that's when Madison in particular, but also Hamilton, ironically, said, "Oh, there's all sorts of ways that you can resist that sort of
Right.
thing happening."
Right.
And of course, they had nullified, in effect, they didn't use the word, but they had nullified the Stamp Act before independence. And
They
then,
did.
Right.
Yes.
So
Well, our the Suffolk Resolves and a whole bunch
Oh,
of
yeah,
other
sure.
things that were involved in that, of going, you know what, and just straight resistance. Isn't it amazing? Our country was founded in so much simple resistance of overarching authoritarian pushes from Great Britain, obviously, and yet
Our forefathers didn't take no shit.
correct, but they didn't take no shit on their own soil and said, if you go against we had the first 100 years of our history of just resisting foreign attacks, and then 120 some odd years in, we got pulled into World War One, and there was a lot of people volunteering. There was a lot of stuff like that. But then World War II, there was justification, and now
Well-
we've become our own empire.
what about the Mexican War?
True. Yes.
And
That's
the-
why I said 100,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, well, and the Spanish-American War. Lincoln, who of course was a tyrant and did many bad things, his credit as a congressman, he said to Polk, "Why are we fighting the Mexicans?" And Polk said, "Oh, they aggressed against us, and we have to fight back. Where's the spot they did that?"
Right.
And so his opponent, "Oh, he has a spotty record." But Lincoln raised the point. He goes, "Where did this actually happen?"
When you actually study Lincoln, you come back going, holy shit, this guy was not.
Tom DiLorenzo's the man. Read Tom
Dude,
DiLorenzo's work.
We got to
on
have Tom
Abraham Lincoln.
DiLorenzo on
Let's do
this
it.
show.
Let's do it.
Oh,
Talk about
because-
the real Lincoln.
Because when you read him from history, he's touted this great liberator, and then when you go back and read while they were tearing down the statues, right? I said this multiple times while they were tearing down the statues. I'm like, wait a minute, do you guys not know that Lee said, if I could free every slave tonight or overnight, I would do it in a heartbeat, prevent this war. And Lincoln said, I care not whether I free any slaves as long as I preserve the Union. There was so much, and knowing
Abe,
that
Abe
Lin-
wanted to send black people back to Africa.
Yeah,
and well, we had Monrovia that was
Liberia.
yeah.
well, but it was originally Monrovia.
Well, it was Liberia. They just say you had the capital city as Monrovia.
Yeah, but it was
But-
an absolute disaster.
Well, what you had is that you had the returning Africans they learned the plantation system, and then they enslaved the natives in that area.
Correct, but
And then they dominated politics, even though they were like 1% or it was a very small fraction of the population
correct.
until 1970 or the 70s. When,
But it was not even acknowledged that the slaves, that the Africans were the ones who perpetuated the slave trade by going and capturing rival tribes, and then sold the rival tribes into slavery to the Spanish or the Portuguese, and then the Portuguese delivered them initially to the United States, but then ultimately to the
Well,
Caribbean, and that's where you get
for
Amistad.
the most
you
part,
get
it
all this
was
stuff.
the Congo Kingdom and the Portuguese that dominated the slave trade.
100%.
And when side note on Kingdom of Congo, it's kind of like a modern day Saudi Arabia petro state where their economy was only based on this one commodity, and they grew super wealthy from it.
Yep.
Extravagant wealth.
Yep.
And then when that commodity or industry, slavery, died out in the mid 1800s, the Congo Kingdom collapsed and all these warring states,
Yeah.
fiefdoms and all that, and was forgotten about.
Where's the most predominant slavery right now? Somalia and the Ivory Coast. Somalia and the Ivory Coast. That's the most predominant
Well,
places of slavery right now.
Probably Asia too. Some places of Asia.
Well, but I'm saying as
Middle
far
East?
as African,
Oh, African.
yeah, African
Yeah.
slaves.
Uh,
But
I-
yes, there's 3 to 4 million Arab.
I know there's a lot of
What do
in,
they
like,
call?
the
What do they
Indian
call them? What do they call the ones in China?
Uyghurs.
Uyghurs. Yes, they're technically they're Arabic,
They're Turkish. They're Turkic.
but they're black slaves.
Well,
They're, yeah,
How Turkic are they?
dark.
They are. They're Turkic. Turkic subgroup. I mean, you have
Yeah.
Dennis is
I mean,
like, now that I know that they're
Not-
Turks, I'm suddenly
well,
There's
Tur-
the-
not so sympathetic to their
Well,
plight.
but there's an
well,
interesting
no,
point.
they're not like the Turks. They're
Right.
They're how there's
Right.
a bunch of different Turkic people. You have all the way in like East Asia and Siberia, and then you have all
Right.
the way in Europe where Turkey is, even though they're not really as Turkic as a lot of these Turkic peoples and
Right, because all the
steppes are.
intermarriages and the
Because they-
conquest and the
because they,
the
like-
bloodlines were
Yeah.
mixed.
Yeah, they
What's I got to figure out the name though, because I love names. Turkmenistan.
Oh yeah, Turkmenistan.
Turkmenistan. Yeah, that's like
Yeah. Uzbekistan.
well, that's a Turkic thing
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But
But I like the
Kazakhstan.
fact that a Turkmenistan, like the Turkman is he's standing. He's like I'm a Turkmenistan. I'm Turk and I'm a man and I'm standing.
Turkmen. It's
You should write a song.
Turkmenistan.
You should
I
write a song
I should
about
write a song
that.
Turkmenistan. This has been a great discussion about foreign policies. I love this. And I love the fact that we finally got Black Pill Teddy and the elder statesman together because you
Elder
guys,
anyway.
dude, no, you guys were riffing off each other, and I love it, absolutely love it. I'm gonna start with Shane Trejo. Give me your final thought there.
Shane Trejo,
Trejo as our resident Latino.
Latinx,
Latinx.
Is he Latinx? Holy shit! I pushed the wrong button. There you
Latinx grouper.
go. Oh yeah, go.
Did you hit the wrong button again?
Go overhead. Go. Sign it,
Sign the damn thing.
dude. I gotta get an intern in here to like do this.
Yes.
You got the brain? Go.
Got the brain.
Get Jorge back in
All
here.
right.
Today, I would just like to gloat to all.
He waited for the fucking camera to come
Today,
on.
I would just like to gloat to all the panicans who out there who doubted my president, Donald J. Trump. My peace president. He signed the best deal in the history of deals to bring peace to the Iranian people and to the Middle East. There's my president, Donald J. Trump. So my president, Donald J. Trump, brought peace to the Middle East. And he has shown definitively that the United States is not going to be bossed around by Netanyahu and Israel. And if Mark Levin doesn't like it, Ben Shapiro doesn't like it, if Senator Ted Cruz doesn't like it, well, it's because they're panicans and they're not real MAGA like all the people here at this table who are America first. We support peace. We want to get the troops home. We want less foreign conflicts, and it's clear that President Trump is going in that direction. My president, Donald John Trump, and I think we're going to run it back. I think we're going to do a third term for this guy.
Hell yeah. All right. Super T over there. Super T.
Where's the
Black
paper?
Pill Teddy. Oh, Shane's got it. He wrote
Pass
it.
the
He wrote it,
damn
yo.
paper,
All
woman.
right, you ready? All right, go. That camera actually works. You know why? Because that's
I had to outdo Shane on how big of my signature is.
dude. You
Nice.
always do a good signature. All right, Black Pill Teddy, go.
Well, I mean, I've just looked at the Wikipedia for the Iran war. You could look it up to fact check me. But when it says result, it says Iranian victory. So, I think America is freaking back. I mean, we're winning so much right now. We have We're winning in
Oh,
high
yeah.
gas prices. We're winning in no arrest. We're winning in 100% MAGA support. Gotta love it. And
You gotta love it.
I think we're just gonna keep winning and winning and winning. And I'm really looking forward to the priorities being invading another country in Latin America instead of arresting corrupt
Epstein class.
Epstein class. Yeah, instead of actually arresting the Epstein class. So another thing too, it was a pleasure finally getting to meet you, Dennis.
Teddy, great meeting you, sir.
Meeting you. And I'm just, America's freaking back. All the panicans and rhinos and doomers and black pillars, you were wrong. I mean, we had peace through strength. Remember when Obama gave the Iranians $1.7 billion?
He was a piker.
Yeah, that was treasonous. I mean, we're giving Iran $25 billion.
Obama was a cheapskate.
Yeah, cheapskate, yeah. Proves that Democrats are the real warmongers.
That's probably true.
But yeah, my final thought is that we have to get away from these foreign entanglements and this foreign influence and this influence by, nefarious actors, both domestic and foreign.
You just don't care about our country, do you, Teddy?
No, I don't.
It's over. The dream's dead.
And we have to get back to restoring freedom and liberty in our own country.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
Word.
Amen, Teddy. Go ahead, Dennis Marburger. Get that on there. Look at that.
Nobody can read it.
Super Dennis. All right,
Okay,
go,
all right.
go.
All right, so I want to first offer a toast
Hey, yeah.
to the great American tradition of panicans.
Yes.
Paul
Great
Revere.
Panicans.
Paul Revere. The redcoats are coming. The redcoats are coming.
Hell yeah.
The men at Bunker Hill, and just yesterday was the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill, and I believe that's where we saw the demise of the great Dr. Joseph Warren, who said that Americans should remember who they are and act appropriately. I'm paraphrasing slightly. Shane's looking this up now. And so it's because of great men, actual patriots, who were complainers, but
Okay.
also who were doers. And
Are complainers candy asses?
no, if they follow through with action and
I'm saying if they complain.
you got to complain. It
Okay.
starts with
Okay,
complaint.
starts to complain. Okay.
It starts with complaining. That's the first part of accountability. That's the first,
All right.
All right. So the Paul Revere and Dr. Joseph Warren and the other men, the committee that wrote the Declaration of Independence, including Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and John Dickinson, the penman of the American Revolution, Mercy Otis Warren, the muse of the American Revolution, her brother James Otis Jr.,
Okay.
who probably kicked the whole thing off in 1761 when he complained about the self-written search warrants. And today, we look at today whether it comes to violations of our privacy or self-written search warrants that are occurring now in effect, or any of the other usurpations of power, the theft of power.
Mm-hmm.
Really, that was they say the word is grievances in the Declaration of Independence, but it's really the theft of power and the attacks on natural rights granted by God that led to the Declaration and led to the changing of attitudes that was the American Revolution. And I say that we get our liberty from God. It's not a gift from government. It's from God. What God has joined together, let no one tear asunder. So
Right.
it's time for us all to study and appreciate and enunciate the principles of the Declaration of Independence. And I give thanks to the Lord that He made us in His image. He's free, and so we are made free.
Amen.
So God bless America.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Speak out. Speak out.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate that so much.
You're welcome, sir.
It is such a blessing to have Black Pill Teddy and the elder statesman. That's what I'm gonna keep calling you because I like that terminology. I want to call you anything that could be disparaged or misconstrued as.
We gotta do the
Dude,
next time we have them on, we gotta do a graphic where Dennis is Yoda and Black Pill is
as
Luke
as
Skywalker. That's what we'll have to.
All right.
That'll be the image we show.
All right, I was thinking more of Mufasa or
Mufasa and Simba.
with Simba in the hand.
Well, if you do that, you make sure when you put a graphic. I have like one of my hats on or something like that.
Dude, I love it. I love it. No, this was great. We've been trying for so long to get the two of you together, and what a great discussion to have the two of you on. Because I sit with Teddy and we talk so much, and Dennis, when you come on the show, we talk before the show, and then on the show, and we just riff off each other, and I love it because the wealth of knowledge and historical context is beyond it, and I hope our audience appreciates this, and we're gonna do this. We're doing this show tonight, so we're not getting a lot of traction tonight because it's an off night on Thursday. But I'm going to rebroadcast this on Sunday and our normal time and get this kicked up. I know Shane grabbed some sound bites or some clips
Definitely.
through this and kick it up because having Scott Horton on earlier and then having a discussion tonight, it's great. And I want to keep kicking this up because this discussion is what we need to keep having. Minds that are well educated. When I hear Teddy always brings up information that I don't know about because he's a historian, and Dennis, you always bring up quotes and resources from people that founding fathers and people on the periphery that I've never heard of, and then even commentators that I've never heard of that are looking into the founding of this country as well as geopolitical dynamics and foreign policy and all this stuff, and I love it because that helps me grow as well as understanding where my position is. I try to come from a base foundation of where I articulate my thought processes. And I know Shane comes from that place too, but then having historians here, you guys, and you're both gracious, you know, Teddy at his young age, but our elder statesman, you guys never tried to.
We got to get him a sash that says elder statesman.
I know.
That he can wear.
Awesome. But you guys never try to grandstand or to belittle. You always try to, even when you have to correct, you're very gracious in it. And I love that about all of us here at the table is we all try to contribute to the conversation and enlighten ourselves first and foremost as we're sitting here, but also enlighten those who are tuning in to listen to this. And that's what elevates my soul. That's what brings me to another place is like, dude, it's like when I hear I'm watching Teddy and he's like this guy and that guy, these groups and these different groups, and I'm like, who are those groups? And then Dennis goes, yeah, those groups, those groups, yeah, they're doing this, and he's just like, oh, and he's pointing over at you, and I'm like, holy shit, and then he pontificates on those groups, and I'm like, oh my, dude, you guys are just riffing off each other, and it's like. When we do that, it comes back to that scripture again, right? Let us come and reason together. What is this reasoning together? And that's what I love about. That's why I want to do this. This is what drives me. Is
A
this
meeting of the
A
minds.
meeting of the minds. This.
We're the fearsome foursome.
We're the fearsome panicans.
Are we the panicans now? I think we've become the traditional MAGA again, right?
Well, now MAGA is a peace movement once again.
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro can get fucked.
Ben Shapiro can suck it.
Until we invade Cuba or another country.
Until we invade Cuba. With all of that, love you guys. We didn't have any chat much tonight, but thanks you guys for tuning in. If you guys
make sure to play that video too.
Yeah, if you guys are tuning in for, where'd you send it to, Matt? Facebook?
Facebook, yep.
Okay. If you guys are tuning in on Sunday, where I'm going to do the replay of this, because I will be at the Tigers game early in the afternoon on Father's Day. With my good buddy, we will be hanging out over there. Hopefully the Tigers can prevail against the Sox. There's Shane Trejo. Trying to figure that. There it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
I'm going to play that.
Yep.
Let's do this.
This is classic.
Did it unmute? Oh, it's circling.
I'm watching you.
That's Professor Munger. He's an econ professor at Duke.
Okay.
Lord Cage, wow, it's such an honor.
The details
Indeed,
are-
sir.
the
Please
details
just
are key.
go right on through. Whoa, whoa.
Whoa, hey.
Identification, please. Hayek.
Nope. Hayek.
Hayek?
Like high explosives.
High explosives. Yeah. We have a 1066. HQ, I repeat, we have a 1066.
Copy that, Mike. What is a 1066? That was just an example of how to pronounce my name.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee, we are here today to consider the impact of government spending on our economy. We're fortunate to have two world-renowned economists to offer their testimony on the matter.
Oh, I see you took a detour down the road to serfdom. Talk about the end of laissez-faire. Sheesh. Well, shake it off, Freddie. I'm not pulling any punches in there. I'm ready. Are you? Prepare for the return of the master.
John Maynard Keynes.
They both got the porn mustaches. Dude.
Round 2.
Porn
Round
stash.
2.0. Same economists, same beliefs.
New microphones.
New
Is
mustaches.
this gonna devolve into a total rap?
This is good.
Okay, we're getting
Here we
banned off
are,
the
peace
YouTube
out,
already.
great recession, thanks to me. As you see, we're not in a depression. Recovery, destiny, if you follow my lesson. Lord Keynes, here I come, line up for the procession.
We brought out the shovels and we're still in a ditch and still digging. Don't you think it's time for a switch from that hair of the dog? Friend, the party is over. The long run is here. It's time to get sober.
Are you kidding? My cure works perfectly fine. Have a look, the Great Recession ended back in '09. I deserve credit, things would have been worse. All the estimates prove it, I'll quote chapter and verse.
Econometricians, they're ever so biased. Are they doing real science or confirming their bias? Their Keynesian models are tidy and neat, but that top-down approach is a fatal conceit.
Which way should we choose? More bottom up or more top down? The fight continues. Keynes and Hayek second round. It's time to win. More from the top or from the ground. Let's listen to the great sights. Keynes and Hayek throwing down.
We could have done better had we only spent more. Too bad that only happens when there's a world war. You can carp all you want about stats and regression. Do you deny World War II cut short the depression?
Wow, one data point and you're jumping for joy. The last time I checked, wars only destroy. There was no multiplier. Consumption just shrank as we used scarce resources for every new tank. Pretty perverse to call that prosperity. Ration meat, ration butter, a life of austerity. When that war spending ended, your friends cried disaster. Yet the economy thrived and grew faster.
This is hilarious. We're shaking.
You too only see what you want to see. The spending on war clearly goosed GDP. Unemployment was over, almost down to zero. That's why I'm the master, that's why I'm the hero.
Creating employment's a straightforward craft when the nation's at war and there's a draft. If every worker was staffed in the army and fleet, we'd have full employment and nothing to eat.
Which way should we choose? More bottom up or more top down? The fight continues. Keynes and Hayek second round. It's time to win. More from the top or from the ground. Let's listen to the great sights. Keynes and Hayek throwing down.
Jobs are a means,
Well, this
not
was
the
good.
ends
I like this.
themselves. People work to live better, to put food on the shelves. Real growth means production of what people demand. That's entrepreneurship, not your central plan.
My solution is simple and easy to handle. It's spending that matters. Why's that such a scandal? Money sloshes through the
That's the
pipes and the
producer's father.
sluices,
Looks just like
revitalizing the economy's juices. It's just like an engine that's stalled and gone dark. To bring it to life, we need a quick spark. Spending's the lifeblood that gets the flow going. Where it goes doesn't matter. Just get spending flowing.
You'll see slack in some sectors as a general glut, but some sectors are healthy, only some in a rut. So spending's not free, that's the heart of the matter. Too much is wasted as cronies get fatter. The economy's not a car, there's no engine to stall. No expert can fix it, there's no it at all. The economy's us, we don't need a mechanic. Put away the wrenches, the economy's organic.
Which way should we choose? More bottom up or more top down? The fight continues. continues. Gains in high second round. It's time to weigh in. Or from the top or from the ground. Let's listen to the great gains in high going
So
down.
what would you do to help those unemployed? This is the question you seem to avoid. When we're in a mess, would you have us just wait, doing nothing until markets equilibrate?
I don't want to do nothing. There's plenty to do. The question I ponder is who plans for whom? Do I plan for myself or leave it to you? I want plans by the many, not by the few. Let's not repeat what created our troubles. I want real growth, not a series of bubbles. Stop bailing out losers. Let prices work. If we don't try to steer them, they won't go berserk.
Come on, are you kidding? Don't Wall Street gyrations challenge a worldview of self-regulation? Even you must admit that the lesson we've learned is more oversight's needed, or else we'll get burned.
Oversight? The government's long been in bed with those Wall Street execs and the firms that they've led. Capitalism's about profit and loss. You bail at the losers, there's no end to the cause. The lesson I've learned is how little we know. The world is complex, not some circular flow. The economy's not a class you can master in college. To think otherwise is the pretense of knowledge.
Situation we choose. Bottom up or more top down. The fight continues. Gains in high second round. It's time to weigh in. Or from the top or from the ground. Let's listen to the great gains in high going
You
down.
get on your high horse and you're off to the races. I look at the world on a case-by-case basis. When people are suffering, I roll up my sleeves and do what I can to cure our disease. The future's uncertain, our outlooks are frail. That's why free markets are so prone to fail. In a volatile world, we need more discretion, so state intervention can counter depression.
People aren't chessmen you move on a board at your whim, their dreams and desires ignored. With political incentives, discretion's a joke. Those dials are twisting, just mirrors and smoke. We need stable rules and real market prices, so prosperity emerges and cuts short the crisis. Give us a chance so we can discover the most valuable ways to serve one another.
Which way should we choose? More bottom up or more top down? The fight continues. Gains in high second round. It's time to weigh in. More from the top or from the ground. Let's listen to the great gains in high going down.
What happened? It looked like Hayek won for sure.
Oh yeah.
But you established the note. Things
Yeah.
if they're looking to make it.
Which way should we choose? More bottom up or more top down? The fight continues. Gains in high second round. It's time to weigh in. More from the top
Guys
or
from
from
George Mason
the
University.
ground. Let's listen to the great
No, that's not
gains
AI
in
at all.
high going down.
They did this. Yeah,
Give me a quick, Dennis. Keynesian economics versus Hayek. That's what we were. That's what.
Yeah, well,
yeah. Keynesian.
What people usually.
Oh, Teddy's chiming in.
Keynesian versus
Get a
the
fucking microphone on, Teddy.
I think they'll have to do another episode for that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can do that,
yeah.
But Hayek was a student of Mises, and so he was more, laissez-faire. Let the economy the people will do what needs to be done if left alone. And Keynes was saying, no, you got to use things up.
Control it.
Yeah, but as Hayek was pointing out, and as Mises pointed out, when you do that, you actually create all sorts of problems that weren't there to begin with.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a very well done thing.
Yeah.
So I think we should say goodnight.
Yeah, absolutely. What'd you say?
So let's eat cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got cake.
Hey, great
Costco
time
cake.
tonight. We'll rebroadcast on Sunday. Catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
This is my brain.
Dad, that's an egg.
Yeah, that's an egg.
Honey,
Dude.
that's an egg.
Seriously.
That's an egg.
It's a metaphor.
It's still an egg.
That's an egg.
I would challenge you.
That's an egg.
I know my brain is not actually an egg, okay? It's a metaphor.
Metaphor or not, that's not your brain.
It's just an egg.
Una cerveza para mí. My egg is my brain.
Can I at least have some bacon, maybe some sausage with that egg, though?
Oh, I want some bacon.
I want crepes.
Have some bacon and pancakes with that egg.
I'll take it with
sandwiches.
Extra large brown cage-free eggs.
Can I have your brain with hot cakes?
A little sausage and a little toast and potato.
That would be great.
Does it have antibiotics?
I don't know, man. I'm not good at this shit.
Well, they got to be able to resist some diseases.
You resist the disease.
Has it got any hormones?
Maybe. It's cage free.
Vegetarian?
Maybe.
Are they vegan?
No, I eat steak.
Never apologize and never explain.
Never apologize. Yeah.
Never apologize and never explain.